Good evening, everyone. To call to order this regular meeting of the Willow City Council for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. The time is 6:02 p.m. Item 2 on our agenda this evening, our Pledge of Allegiance. Community Development Services Director Joe Bentoncourt, would you please do the honors and lead us in the pledge tonight?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Stan? What?
Thank you, Joe. Item 3, roll call. City Clerk Amos Hoover.
Councilmember Thomas,
Here.
Councilmember Vaden,
Yeah.
Councilmember Sprague,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hudson,
Here.
Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Everyone's present, sir.
Thank you, Amos. Item 4, changes to the agenda. City Manager Marty Brown.
There are no changes.
Very good. Thank you, Marty. Item 5, presentation. Item 5A, Community Development and Services Annual Report. We're going to receive the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual report of the Community Development and Services Department. Joe Bentoncourt, our very capable Community Development Services Director, will be presenting it tonight. Before we turn it over to Joe, City Manager Marty Brown, do you have any comments?
I do not. I think it's a very robust presentation that you'll be getting this
Very good.
evening. So
Very good.
with
We're
that,
looking forward to some robustness. Joe.
All right. Well, thank you, council. So as you mentioned, we'll be going through the Community Development and Services Annual Report, which is quite robust. So I will try to get through it quickly, and we'll do questions at the end if you have any. The first page here, kind of go through what is Community Development Services. It encompasses public works, includes the wastewater treatment plant and sewer system, the engineering department, the building and code enforcement department, planning, recreation, and economic development. On the next page, we have just a view of the org chart that shows the community development and services organization again, and the people that are involved in the organization. So under public works, we have one superintendent, currently have 4 maintenance workers and 1 mechanic. Under engineering, it's 1 contractor, which is Coastland, John Wanger, as our city engineer. The building department consists of the permit tech, Terra Stores, and our contractor, Wyatt Paxton. Planning department is also Terra Stores and our current contract, LACO. And then recreation is handled by a contractor, and that is Pedro Bobadilla at the current moment. And then Marty, of course, as the city manager, helps me with all of those things, and we kind of do the economic development together. All right, we'll be looking at public works first, and these slides will be an overview, a look at the budget, completed maintenance this past fiscal year, equipment needs, and future goals. The Public Works Department, as we said, consists of 4 maintenance workers, 1 superintendent, and 1 mechanic. They are responsible for street and alley maintenance, sewer line and lift station maintenance, storm drain maintenance, parks and softball field maintenance, and facilities maintenance. The street and alley maintenance is mostly cold patch, which doesn't last as long as the hot patch. And that is due to the fact that we don't have a hot asphalt warmer to keep the hot patch warm to install on bigger patch work. The sewer line and lift stations has aged infrastructure to it. That causes a lot more maintenance costs to us. The storm drain maintenance is mostly consists of street sweeping and cleaning of drainage inlets, especially before a large storm is predicted to cut down on damage. The parks and softball field maintenance is the continual mowing, edging, pruning, trimming, spraying, cleaning restrooms, clogged restrooms, vandalism, all the things that come with large swaths of grass, trees, and facilities that are left open to public use and abuse. And then facilities maintenance, this is all the work done at our city hall, and as well as all the work done at our 2 rentals or any other public owned property, including weed abatement on our lots. All right, so we'll take a little look at the budget here. The personnel costs are the biggest expense, even with only the people that I mentioned before in the unit. Materials and supplies is listed at a total of $85,000. That includes things like vehicle maintenance at $10,000, fuel at $15,000, equipment maintenance at $15,000. So at the end of the day, our public works department doesn't have a lot of room for tools and materials when we consider all the costs associated with their department. Park maintenance is at 6,650. That excludes utility costs of water and sewer and those things. So again, not a lot of funding there to do a lot of upgrades and things of that nature. Museum maintenance is at 500. Obviously, that doesn't get you very much. And then we've got our streets budget, which is 10,000 for alleyways and 10,000 for street materials, cold patch, hot patch, alley grading, materials for alley grading. And on our next slide, we'll be looking at completed maintenance. These are just statistics that we compile throughout the year. Tree and stump removals at 136, which is a lot. They did a lot of that this last year. Trimmed 26 trees, had 28 sewer line issues. Those are related to the mains, not personal laterals. Poured 32.25 tons of cold patch and had 436 USA markings. So getting out and marking USAs takes up a lot of time. On the next slide, we've got some pictures. The upper left is the tree stumper. That piece of equipment is currently down and needs to be rebuilt. And it's already rebuilt once. So that needs to be replaced at this time. We've got the guys installing a Lions bench as a memorial for the Lions Club. They've got that installed this last year. Repainting the bleachers, doing tree maintenance work, grading of alleys. And they did the alleys between Plumas and Shasta, north of Wood to Vine, Plumas to Shasta, south from Wood to Willow, between Tehama and Butte, north of Wood and Vine, between Butte and Shasta, south of Wood and Willow, and between Culver and Merrill, south of Wood to Willow. And the final picture is a picture of a larger cutout that has been hot patched, which is required for these larger repairs. Again, the not having a hot patch box basically to keep the hot patch warm really limits us to the amount of larger cutouts that we can fix. Okay, for the equipment, we'll go through this. This is kind of all of our aged major infrastructure. The jet vacuum truck is about 14 years past its useful life. The one good thing about that is it's almost entirely funded out of the sewer fund for replacement. So you're looking at a minimum of $500,000 for that truck. The grader's in 1968. I believe we had about a $4,000 repair on it last year, which caused alleyways delays. The sweeper's currently being repaired, doing its yearly maintenance. Costs around $4,500 for that repair. The dump truck's just old. The water truck's old. The leaf vacuum box is really old, and if that goes down, we won't be able to pick up leaves. Stump grinder is out of service currently, so we don't have the ability to go grind stumps that we've cut down, which can lead to sewer line issues and other things. And then again, the asphalt hot box, what they currently have is they had a smaller unit that is no longer functional at this point. So a lot of old equipment. Here's some pictures of the roller. It's currently got a drum issue, which is going to be a pretty hefty repair cost. So it is currently inactive. There's a picture of our vacuum truck. Again, these things range $500,000 to $700,000 to replace. You probably expect a 1 to 2 year delay on having one built for you. A picture of the grader that was recently repaired, and then a picture of the leaf truck and box. And I'll mention too that some of these are coming up against CARB compliance issues. That if they aren't replaced with, new final tier 4 motors at some point in time, I don't know the exact date for all of them, but we do have that targeted on a spreadsheet. They will no longer be allowed on the road, and we will be forced to get rid of them and have no replacement fund to replace them. And there's a picture of the hot asphalt box. This again is a trailer that's pulled behind, and what it does is keep the hot asphalt hot and warm. Our crews right now have to go pick it up in a dump truck and use it all on the same day before it cools off, or else it is no good anymore. Okay, upcoming goals for the Public Works Department. We've cut staffing. We may be fully staffed at 4 public workers right now and 1 mechanic, according to our budget. But having a couple of additional staff would really give us the ability to tackle more work. Along with that becomes replacing critical aged equipment. We've got more employees. We're going to need equipment for them to use to do larger projects. Replace critical age infrastructure. These are things like the lift stations, all of our streets and roads. The longer we let them go, the more we spend in maintenance from keeping it from crumbling apart. You know, you're putting a Band-Aid on something that needs an amputation kind of deal. Funding for preventative maintenance. This will just allow us to buy hot patch, cold patch, and keep the roads in decent condition until we can find funding to do larger repair and replace projects. And of course, apply for grants to fund larger infrastructure projects and replace equipment. If we can't fund it with general fund needs, we have to look for alternative sources, which we always do, but there is no guarantee in that funding becoming available. All right, we'll be moving on to the wastewater treatment plant and sewer. We'll do a little overview of it.
Could I ask a
Yeah.
question? So clearly, most, a lot of some source printing money. Do you have a grant writer? Do you have access to a grant writer? Does somebody in mind write grants to replace or otherwise deal with the infrastructure addition?
Nate Monk, Joe Betancourt, and Marty Brown currently, I think would be the answer to
That's the
that.
grant writing team?
And that's the resources. So no, we do not have a contract grant writer. When we do grants like the CDBG that's coming up, we rely on John for engineering work and things of that nature, but narrative writing, scope, all of that would come from internal staff at this time.
There are a lot of it out there. It seems like there is. Every time I pick up a newspaper, some agency got a grant.
It's very dependent on the economy and funding, and what's going on in the federal government. A lot of times, you're usually guaranteed pots of money, but like USDA currently for a grant that we got to replace equipment in previous years is now not funding projects. So it really does roll.
Yeah, like the
Year to year.
USDA grant was a grant that we've gotten quite a bit of funding from for fire and public works apparatus in the past, and there's like nothing this year. But other years we've received, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it really does ebb and flow, especially the state and federal funds.
Yep.
Ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Staying line. Has there been a cost analysis kind of done by the city as far as if we're hiring these projects out to a third-party contractor and then instead of hiring our own staff, or like if we hire more staff and get the correct equipment? Has there been a cost analysis done on what that might save us instead of hiring third-party contractors to do tasks that we currently can't do because of our current staff levels or equipment? Does that make
Are you
sense?
talking about like anything in specific, something specific, a department, or are you just saying generally kind of?
Well, it
generically?
just kind of sparked the question in general with speaking of public works, right now we don't have a stump grinder, so I'm assuming that's being contracted out. Or it's just not being done for the trees that we're
It's
responsible.
rentals.
It's
Or
rental
or it's
being done
rentals.
right now. That is what we're
Okay.
doing.
And
Um,
then
I
other
would say-
similar things would be like the hot asphalt, if we're able to do our own pourings rather than for larger projects, rather than having to go third party. Is there a cost analysis done saying, hey, really for us, that's only like an additional, let's say $50,000 a year for us to have our own equipment and staff to do that over the next 10 years rather than consistently hiring out or renting this equipment all the
That-
time?
That has been done. It's typically done on a case-by-case basis. For example, there's been the hot topic of bringing the management of the wastewater treatment plant in-house. A whole feasibility study was done on that back before I started in 2021, which I've shared with members of the council. So there's some things that have been looked at in the past, and maybe this council hasn't been privy to. Some things are looked at on a case-by-case basis, but for example, the later item related to planning, Councilmember Bodden asked, could we hire a full-time planner? And my response to that is there isn't really enough work to warrant a full-time planner. And so, paying a pension, social security, health insurance, and salary pretty quickly, even with an assistant or associate level planner, is going to be $80,000 to $100,000 roll-up cost for the city. And there's not really enough work for that person full-time. So it would have to be some sort of hybrid position, right? So that they're doing some other tasks. But it's, again, it's challenging to find who's going to want to do that. I mean, planners, that's a field, that's a profession,
Mhm.
urban planning. It's not a hybrid type of job. So there's always the question of who would do a job where there's maybe 20 hours a week of planning and then just other duties is assigned would be random. I think we would be hard pressed to find that
Okay.
person. So.
And I'm just I guess I'm kind of thinking more of the public works side right now, more specifically, like we're talking about, doing sidewalks and stuff like that. Now, instead of hiring that out to being third party,
Depending
there
on
any-
funding source, you might
Right.
be obligated to contract funding source and project size.
okay,
Will come into procurement regulations that say you will contract this out. So on a
Okay.
lot of our larger projects, I mean.
we have
like,
to do that no matter.
Yeah,
what.
a limit would be $60,000. If it's over that, you're not allowed to do it in-house, with a lot of
Okay.
funding things. If you're a larger department, you've got general fund sources to do those things, then you can kind of look at making a decision of, is it worth it going buying all of our own equipment? Honestly, at the end of the day, like Marty said, on a lot of things, it's probably pretty even when you look at maintenance costs, things like, of the vehicles.
Right,
That kind
yeah.
of having the staff. But it does work to do to keep things afloat. Yes, the in-house and having the proper equipment to do that, is the way to go. But larger things, usually it's hard to pencil out.
Okay. But right now, our current public works is kind of keeping up with,
Yeah, I mean,
What we're
equipment
looking at,
wise and stuff,
okay.
it's patching, it's,
once we get the
This is, again,
equipment
another
updated or.
bare minimum staffing levels right now. It was really nice for a minute when we were able to hire, 6 public works, and now we're down to 4, core crew members. It would be ideal and better to have more like 6, and yet still, as the mayor can attest to and others here, that's considerably lower than it was just 10 years ago. There were 11 people in public works. So even with 6, which we don't have, that's still quite a bit lower than what was, less than 10 years ago, the city had. And now we're doing everything with 4. It's very, very challenging. In fact, the superintendent and I discussed it this morning that, when we put on an event like last Thursday's event, it's great for the community. And I think that the goals and objectives are really important, but it is very taxing on this organization to do an event like that and plan for it. And it sets us back on other things. It means that we don't do other day-to-day operations because we're doing this thing. So it's, yeah, I mean, really ideally, it would be much better to have at least 6 public works crew members at this point.
Mr. Mayor, I might answer some of Councilman Hudson's questions.
Well, I think at this point, we continue with the presentation and we'll have time for questions and comments afterwards, Mr. Sprague.
All right, so we'll move on to sewer and wastewater treatment plant. The city contracts with Infomark, as Marty just mentioned, for the wastewater treatment plant operation. The city is responsible for the cost of repair and infrastructure improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. So the contract is specifically for the running of the plants itself. City is also responsible for all the sewer main lines, manholes, lift stations, and everything outside of the wastewater treatment plant. All this equipment is getting to an age where it's starting to need replaced or special attention to it. At the wastewater treatment plant. And here's a year breakdown of our sewer mains throughout the city. As you can see, 56% of our sewer mains are 100 years or older. The 5 lift stations are 30 to 40 years old, and the treatment plant itself is approximately 16 years old. Why is sewer treatment contracted? It's highly technical licenses. The city would need to pay a very competitive market rate to attract somebody here with those kinds of licenses. Well, they've got resources that they can tap into that they wouldn't here at the city if they're part of a larger organization. And liability, if something goes wrong, we have a contractor to say you were supposed to be watching this. It takes liability off of the city. I saw this with much smaller municipality, but in Hamilton City as well, where they had a very hard time attracting somebody with the proper licenses and wanted to do it in-house. And I don't think they were able to do it back then, and they might still be contracting that service out. So it's very hard to attract. And that was one person they were looking to do that. We would need more staff level than that. So here's a look at the wastewater treatment plant budget. This does not include capital expenditures because we've got large bond projects. This is just revenue from our sewer fees and interest income, and then expenses related to the operation of the plant. A budget expense line item for maintenance and replacement of the plant, a debt service, and the overhead cost associated with staff time charged to the sewer fund. So you can see, and this is not exact numbers, but we're taking out capital expenditures and those kinds of things. We look to clear around 275,000 as a reserve building portion of money after all revenues and expenses. Any questions on that before I move to engineering?
I do on the budget there,
Uh-huh.
on the operation of the treatment plant, 737,000.
Yep.
My recollection that with that most recent contract that we did with Infomark was just north of 650,000. What else is included in your?
I'll have to find that out for you. This number's straight out of our budget book for this year. So it's a single line item of 737,000.
Okay, yeah, would you check into that
Yeah,
for me to
we
see?
can get a
Because
breakout of what's included in those costs.
one of the advantages that we had, and going back to what Marty was referring to, the side-by-side analysis, back for what we were getting for about 595,000 to 600,000 with Infomark. The city engineer, John Wagner, did a budget analysis of that, and it would have hit well over $700,000 for us to do it in.
In-house, yeah, it was a little more to do it in-house than it was. And I believe that was 2020 that analysis was done.
Yeah,
Yes.
19, 20, 21, some.
So just inflation factors alone, things like that, of that nature, that price is probably going to be even more bigger of a bigger of a gap between the cost of in-house and the cost of contracting. But yeah, we can get you that information. Like I said, that's straight out of the budget book for their operations.
Okay, well, yeah, if you would check on that and let me know.
Yep.
I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Future projects. So the city engineer and Infomark got together. The city engineer already had a CIP program for some projects out at the wastewater treatment plant. They've got input from Infomark to add some additional items. These are future items that are not currently in progress. They're planned, but they are not budgeted. So this is critical infrastructure that will need to be replaced. Some of it's more long-term within the next 10 years. Some of it wants to be replaced in the next 5 years. But just some larger ticket items that we'll need to build funding up for from one source or another to eventually rehabilitate or replace. All right, so we're going to take a look at the engineering department. Again, this is Coastland that we contract with, and John is our city engineer. They are responsible for capital improvement projects. These are larger infrastructure projects and development plans, specifications, bid documents, procurement, project management, and inspection services. So they kind of run the full gamut of those infrastructure projects. They also are our building permit plan check reviewers. They handle our encroachment permits and other city engineer duties, lighting and landscape plan, capital improvement plans, and other things as needed from us. So the budget for engineering, not including any capital improvement projects or other things of that nature, is 140,000. Got a little note there that says cost recovery. A lot of this budget is eligible for cost recovery because of plan check review. So a lot of this funding will be spent with plan check review, which we recover from the applicant in the form of revenue per project. Completed projects, so kind of road RSTP, Regional Service Transportation Program, and gas tax projects. Pacific Avenue Road Rehab, the 2024 street rehab, Green and Jefferson Street repair, which was an emergency repair, I believe. And then in the sewer fund, we've completed the CCTV sewer inspection and also completed the AC replacement here at City Hall. Current projects, these are projects that are currently in progress. So that would be our Pool Sycamore Park grant. That's a Clean California grant to do a bunch of renovations, including walking paths, the pool itself, lighting, pickleball courts, tennis courts. RSTP gas tax money. We've got our sidewalk rehab project, which has not been filed for notice of completion, but is complete and done. And then we've got our 2025 street rehab project. We've approved some streets through this process, but we will be bringing up some different streets for you guys to consider at your direction of wanting to do not so much maintenance of semi-bad roads and repair some of our really, really bad roads. CB23 grant is a Jensen Park walkway installation, and we're doing our ADA door and pathway upgrades, pathways being the pathway to the door from the ADA compliant parking stalls. And then funded out of the sewer is the lift station rehab, sewer main replacement project. And that sewer main replacement project, we cambered 9,000 linear feet of sewer main. We'll be replacing approximately 5,600 linear feet with that 1.9 million. Wastewater treatment plant upgrades includes things like bar screen replacement, valve replacement, things in addition to those other projects on the CIP list. And John's working with us on the solar array project and installation as well. So the main goal in engineering is pursue grants and other funding sources to complete infrastructure projects at the wastewater treatment plant. We'll also do this for road infrastructure that was kind of handled under Public Works. But we need absolutely the reserves will probably that we make off of our sewer rates in comparison to expenses. We will need some additional funding in order to avoid some sort of major equipment malfunction. Here's some pics of the completed 2024 road rehab project. On the left, you see Humboldt going to the south of Wood, a driveway apron, which was one of two that was completed on Laurel Street. And then I believe that's Crawford headed to the south there, which they did curb gutter and that roadway. Again, more pictures of the 2024 rehab. We've got a curb there at North Villa, I think north and south side of Villa are the first two, and then the corner of Humboldt turning on to Sycamore is the next picture. As I mentioned, the sidewalk rehab that was recently awarded to Rock Creek Construction was done ahead of schedule. So here's some pictures of those locations. This was on Walnut, Villa Avenue, Laurel Street, and by Sycamore Park in front of the pool area. Just a picture of the proposed solar array site at the wastewater treatment plant. And here's a picture of the CB23 funded Jensen Park upgrade. So we'll be installing pathways from the ADA parking, we'll be modifying the ADA parking spot to be fully compliant, and then installing pathways to the gazebos, playground areas, fixing a concrete slab that has some holes in it that we'll put some ADA picnic tables on, upgrade some picnic areas as well. Anything on that before I move forward to code enforcement building? Okay. Yeah, we're going to do the overview budget, a little master fee schedule talk, building statistics, code enforcement cases and goals. So this department is made up of one in-house staff member. So one permit, half of one permit tech, because he does planning as well. And Wyatt Paxton is the contractor for our building inspection and code enforcement services. They're responsible for issuing building permits, inspecting job sites to ensure work is compliant, and issuing code violations and following through with abatement. The budget info, again, in-house staff. This is our permit tech. And then Wyatt Paxton is contracted for $90,000 to do the inspection and code enforcement services. So this is the master fee schedule you guys recently approved. It is currently in place relating to the building permit fees specifically for this piece. This took a lot of time from staff, as you've already heard, to do the rate studies and figure out what everything costs per hour for them to get done, including inspections. So yeah, I just wanted to know that's completed and is now implemented. Next slide is just some statistics from the 23-24 year. We received 276 permit applications, 263 permit applications were issued, 52 encroachment permits were issued, 197 final inspections completed, and 53 code enforcement cases. And I just want to say with the, permits that are issued and not final, Lance Foley, who works under Wyatt Paxton now, is doing a great job of reaching out. We're contacting these non-finaled permits or expired permits and checking in with the applicant, seeing where they're at, where they want to go with it. So there's been a real motivated effort to reach out and find out what's going on with these projects and where we're at with them.
And that's trying to move the submitted into the issued, correct?
Yeah, yeah, or ones that are expired, reaching out there, and we've had multiple people come in and renew, so that's always good. They pick back up their projects, and we, get a renewal fee off of that. So, getting everybody back on track, kind of thing. Relating to code enforcement, this is not all of our code enforcement cases, but these are some of the major ones ongoing at this time. So 600 North Humboldt, the new management has made good strides in correcting a lot of their code enforcement violations. We're still working with them on finishing up some of these violations, and code enforcement staff will again be doing, I think, twice a year, full inspections of every unit. So they'll be going through and making sure nothing's falling back apart or there's other issues after everything's final. And I think they'll actually break it into chunks because it's so big that they'll do quarters at a time per quarters of the month. 143 North Yolo Apartments. This is multiple code violations. They've had previous cleanup efforts that have been attached to the property from the fire department on the exterior. This building is currently red tagged. We do have some squatting going on that we're trying to minimize. And we're going through the process of receivership, which we have a date set up in October to hopefully get this thing under new ownership and work with him on abating this issue permanently. I think we've only got one tenant still remaining who's currently working on getting housing and has applications in to get housing. 332 North Butte residents. This is the house that is leaning, very dilapidated. Fire Chief Monk reached out to the owner of the house, and he seems very motivated to work with us and property demolished and get the ground cleared. So that one is on a positive note. We've got somebody who hope that'll be moving forward with that. And then we've got another structurally deficient building. This is on Tehama, near the taco truck, Crazy Taco. It's the old bar building that's kind of falling in on itself. It's currently fenced off, and the owner recently renewed his demo permit, and we've been working with him on getting back on track on getting this down. Here's just some pictures of the major ones. 143 YOLO said we've been working to try to keep it boarded up. We've got people breaking in and squatting in it. Just trying to manage that as best as possible until we're through the process. 151 South Tehama Street is the brick building I was just talking about. And then there's 332 North Butte, which is the residence that's got a little much of a lean going to it that we're optimistic will be demolished sooner than later. Okay, and so the goals for code enforcement, this is something that Marty has mentioned to me before that would be a really good thing if we can make it happen down the road, to create a code enforcement task force. And this would kind of bring all of the key players together and looking at these issues and figuring out the best way to resolve it, as they're very complicated on both law enforcement, code enforcement, legal side of it. So we want to look to develop getting together and seeing how we can resolve these issues. And, possible people involved in this would be the sheriff, the fire chief, city code enforcement officer, myself, city council, and the city manager. Like I
The
said,
attorney.
yeah. Oh,
The
yes.
city attorney.
Sorry.
Well, it's spelled correctly,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
people get it
The city-
confused.
I had city attorney and I changed it to council, and I get why that would be confusing now.
We know what you meant.
Yeah, yeah.
Not asking you to be on the task force.
We want all of you guys. This council. All right. So any questions on that before we move on to planning? Okay, we're almost done. I promise. Not too much more. All right. So planning, again, just overview budget and projects. Planning services are provided again with a halftime permit tech for kind of application reception and working with the public at the front counter. And then we are currently contracted with LACO, and we've got Byron Turner as our deputy planner, who's been the lead. Their jobs include reviewing permit application for zoning ordinance, lot line adjustments, variances, other types of use permits. And then on a larger kind of more in-depth scale, more kind of concentrated, would be preparation, updating, amendment, and general plan elements, specific plans, and working on zoning ordinances, or updating the zoning portion of the municipal code in our case. This budget's currently set at $130,000 of expenditure, which is a cost recovery, probably not as much as we get from John's side of it, as not every planning application would require a cost recovery agreement. Sometimes they're just an initial fee. We still make revenue off of it. But yeah, that's usually not as much as we get on the plan check, which is a guaranteed cost recovery every time. When we look at current projects, we've got our Jack in the Box project. They're currently going through Caltrans encroachment things, but they are highly motivated to start work this fall. We've got a commissary that's looking to be installed at Norawa Taco Truck, which is located just to the north of Ace Hardware Store. They want to be able to park their mobile unit there and do food preparation. We've got the mixed-use development of Basin Street, which has been on the books for a while, and we're actively engaged with them, trying to find money for infrastructure improvement to both hopefully develop the industrial and mixed residential lots out there. And then North Valley Indian Health is doing some lot mergers for their parking lot and potential, I believe, development of a behavioral health facility or something to that effect down the road. When we look at completed projects, we've got Harish, and he is the trading post on Sycamore. We had a signed permit from Swift Trucking that's been approved. Tacos Ocampo's been approved. Joy Pendel was, I believe, the Jiu-Jitsu conditional use permit. And then Red 88 is another big one that we were able to complete this last year. Any questions on planning? All right, recreation. So these services are provided entirely by contract staff. Currently, it's, like I said, Pedro Bobadilla is our contractor. And he's involved with coordinating youth sports programs, which are fall and spring soccer and youth basketball, assisting in the setup and registration for the Jump Start program, and staffing and managing the summer swimming pool. When we look at the budget for recreation, we have $15,000 per fiscal year for our contractor. Part-time salaries include lifeguards, and then for the recreation, that's on the pool side for the lifeguards. And then recreation, it's referees, not coaches, they're usually volunteers, but referees and other officials for running the game. That leaves $1,000 for recreation supplies. And the $21,000 for the pool is for this upcoming year. And that is a little higher than what we contracted with for the high school. And that's to mitigate the cost of opening and running the pool with new chemicals and everything like that with the city pool. Okay, so. All right, so here's just some participant information. You can see soccer is quite our popular programs, 134 and 135 for fall and spring. We do one basketball camp a year that runs from January to March, and 91 enrolled in that. And then our Jump Start program, which was pretty light this year compared to previous years. Sometimes it just varies. You are able to sign up week by week. So you can see week 1 was 6, week 2 was 10, week 3 was 12, and week 4 was 9. We're talking to the teachers that run that program and may do a price reduction or something to try to entice more people into it. It's a really awesome program. It teaches kids that aren't in school yet to kind of socialize and do all of their projects and get them school ready. So the goals in recreation, of course, we'd love to allocate additional funding for part-time and contract staff, or part-time or contract staff to cover costs of additional programs. So maybe add another basketball camp, maybe open up a flag football league, maybe open up swim classes. But that requires funding to pay for referees, lifeguards, instructors, all of those things. Allocate additional funding to replace age equipment or buy additional equipment. We opened up additional programs, so we would need additional equipment. And of course, apply for grants to fund recreation facility projects and replace equipment, as funding is always an issue. Okay, I believe this is my last one. So we're going to look at economic development. This is mainly just managed by myself and the city manager, Marty Brown. Funding for economic development activities is pretty much fully dependent. We don't have a budget line item for this. So it's pretty much fully dependent on grant funding opportunities, marketing, opportunities, yeah, not general funded. The municipal code update can also assist in being able to make it a little easier to cite businesses by fine tuning our zoning requirements and standards for new development. And the completion of our Tyler transition will bring business licenses in-house, which we hope will be a little smoother of a process than it has been for some individuals. And also eliminate the cost share with a third-party company. Current projects would be Basin Street. We're working with Basin Street, like I said, to try to find infrastructure opportunity for road, sidewalk, sewer connections, all those kinds of things, to make it a more lucrative, have a better appeal to private developers when you have those things knocked out and out of the way. Kind of went over, yeah, we're in the same page here. So here's some new businesses. Housing, we've got Jack in the Box again in progress. Homes to Suite is a hotel hoping to come in. They're currently in environmental review process. Mercado's Meat Distribution is across the street from the current Mercado's Meat. He's opening a meat market, grocery, and other thing like that. Munish is in progress with his hotel to apartment conversion on the south side of town. Completed his fourplex rental, which is all good, multi-unit housing. Red 88 is open. Fatco is a company that uses all natural beef tallow fats and makes moisturizers, creams, things like that. Treasure Time is a specialty store that sells all kinds of different neat things. La Casita is a Mexican restaurant located at the Willows Mall, along with the barbershop. And Henry's Trading Post is on the corner of Sycamore and Plumas. And then we've got Thrive Yoga Studio downtown, who will be open soon. So goals for economic development. Contract with the economic development company to actively seek out businesses that would correspond with the city's general plan. At the last convention I went to, I did talk to a company, and I can't recall their name right now, that specializes in reaching out to businesses to try to get them cited in small towns. And they focus on rural communities. Kind of something that was right up our alley, something we'd really benefit from. Work directly with, like I said, companies that would be a good fit here and are looking to be situated off of I-5 mainly. Their cost proposal, I believe, is about $40,000 a year with a minimum of a 3-year commitment. So just as an example, there's companies out there that really do fit those kinds of things for a price. Continue to seek grant funding to assist Basin Street properties in developing infrastructure improvements for their industrial and residential development. And continue to seek grant funding to assist the city in marketing itself to new businesses, but not the I-5 feasibility study, because I got the point on that one last time. So we'll do better on those kind of marketing materials. And then continue to seek grant funding to direct travelers from I-5 to our existing businesses. And that sums up economic development. And with that, that sums up my Community Development Services Annual Report. If you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Joe. Questions, comments?
Yeah, if I may, Joe, the hotel that was to be located near Casa Remos by Suresh, who owns the Best Western, I don't see it on here. Has it failed to?
I don't know if they ever submitted a planning application for that. I'd have to look at the status of that, though. I'm not 100% sure.
That was the one that got into the discussion about whether the fire truck could reach a 4th floor, and then we reduced it to 3 floors, as I recall. So
Yes,
it was
and
fairly active dialogue at one.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'd have to check with you.
Stu, is that,
There were 2 hotels.
that's
One
right. I
was
didn't
the
mention it
first-
because
Yeah, one was the 4 floors, and that was gonna be closer to Starbucks on that side, and that never moved forward because, as we mentioned before, we don't have a ladder truck that reaches 4 stories. So that stopped it in its tracks. And the other hotel project has,
It's an
I-
environmental.
is it in CEQA review? Yeah,
Yeah.
the one, yeah.
The-
The Home to Suite, Home to.
Home to Suite.
Home to
that's Kumar's hotel. That's not the same guy.
Yeah. No,
This
but
is, there were
I don't
2
know that
hotels
one.
by
I don't
Casa
know.
Remos, which you're saying one was Starbucks. I didn't know that, by Starbucks. I thought both of them were gonna go next to Casa Remos in that opening. He bought all that land, including the Casa Remos.
and they were gonna put two hotels, they were gonna punch a street going
I don't know.
west.
Yeah, I don't know if that made it. I believe the
Okay.
Home Two-
Where's the home to?
by Holiday Inn Express over in that area.
So
Yeah,
north
it
of
is.
162.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the area you're talking about.
Anyway,
Okay.
But they got hit when we submitted their planning application for environmental review. I got hit, but the Department of Fish and Wildlife requested biological surveys and other things like that. So when we send those
on
applications.
a
out-
land they tore a hotel down from? We,
No, that's the other one.
oh, the other one, okay.
Yeah, sorry. David. I update on the one you're
Let's
referencing.
see if we can find out, because that one really, that was a Hilton Garden, I believe, was one of them, and I don't know what the other one was,
Okay.
but these were. And then here's a thought for you, and as you go forward with economic development, there was a big article in the paper about our neighbors to the north, wherein they were discussing ways to incentivize the building of a hotel. Because as you know, they're very distressed that we have 5 hotels, not counting the Economy Inn, and maybe the Blue Gum, if you would count that, and they have 1. So it just seems to me that we should, particularly maybe if you go out and talk to this project that is just floundering, had a sign up there, 2 hotels coming for the longest time. Can we not incentivize, as they are discussing in Orland, the idea of, and if you want to read the article, it had, TOT tax considerations going forward for just as a condition of them building. And then there was costs of development. I forget how they labeled it, but this is done all the time. And I can't tell you what another hotel on the property or in our city limits would do for the city. We know the TOT tax is great. We know the traffic they create produces business and all of the stuff on Humboldt. We all want it to come further into the town. Red 88 is doing that right now. I'm sure most of you know that Red 88 is drawing people not only from the west, but from Chico and other places. So that's the deal. So I hope we can seriously look at trying to incentivize what I believe to be at least 1 hotel and also the home too for the Holiday Inn Express owner, and get those things on the ground producing revenue for this city. Because after all, what have we said over and over and over again? Revenue, revenue, revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other questions, comments, anyone? Rick, anything?
Just under the public works equipment, what you have here on your list is $1.168 million, not counting the asphalt hot box. Do you have a priority list of what we should be looking at first?
Yeah, I mean, the priority list basically ranges for, do we absolutely need it? Can we survive without it? So the jet vacuum truck really comes to mind on that, as that is keeping sewer lines open and plugged. And we start looking at sanitary sewer overflows in the city, they get really expensive really quick. So keeping those sewer lines clean is important. Street sweepers are, and the jet vac truck, street sweepers are also important. Keeping the drainage inlet clear. I mean, we can live without everything. It's just a matter of, what we can get done without it. We've also got things that are going to be timed out and gone. We lose a dump truck. They all have a consequence to them, but ones that are preventative maintenance for life and safety, flooding and sewer systems are probably the top.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas.
Can I follow up on
Yeah,
Councilmember
Mis-
Thomas's
Yes,
question?
Mr. Hudson, please.
Have we ever looked at are there any sort of leasing options for the city for that equipment to where it's, we don't have to deal with it? Let's say it's a 5-year lease and then after that we give it back and get something else that's,
I'm not familiar with that for equipment. I'm definitely familiar with it for vehicles. Not only fire trucks, but also pool vehicles for the city, public works vehicles. There's a lot of to own type of options for vehicles, but I'm not familiar with that for equipment.
Only
To
thing,
explore that.
yeah, equipment, I don't know either. The heavy equipment, I know vacuum trucks. Municipalities will work with a company like MME, share a vacuum truck, but you're at the mercy of who's using it. It's not a real lease kind of thing. It's just kind of a share program. You're still paying for it, but people will have it on for a year or 2 or those kinds of things.
how
specific to
about,
vacuum.
how about used equipment that's maybe a wealthier city than ours is getting rid of?
They're going to get rid of it at the end of their useful life.
Right. I understand that, right? They're gonna get rid of it after their 10 years, but yet we're using equipment that's 30 years old.
That's
So really a piece of equipment that's 10 years old isn't outdated for us. It's outdated maybe for them, but not for our needs
Well,
when
you-
we're
you-
looking
you
at
do have to
maintenance costs and all
consider-
that.
Be making more repairs more frequently. And so you're kind of back into this sort of,
Kind of start a vicious cycle
yeah.
where
And yeah, normally those end of useful lives are really good calculated methods to say after 15 years, this vehicle is now going to cost us more than it's going to be worth to keep it. And that's why they do them. Me driving older vehicles myself, I would, do it, but you do pick up the chance of getting the lemon or just a maintenance nightmare.
We have,
Yeah.
by the way, maintenance lemon nightmare.
So usually we try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I have a,
Oh,
you're done.
Yeah,
I just wanted to follow up on that. I was gonna let you go ahead.
yeah, Craig, just one moment, please, just to,
I'm sorry.
just stand by. I'll get to you in a second. Evan, just your comments were exactly what I was thinking in reference to a road grade, for example, a grader, our old worn out grader. I think it'd be quite possible since the grader, I mean, it's, it's definitely a needed piece of equipment, but, more of a gently used grader, especially, it's primarily for grading alleyways.
We're not doing
primarily. So,
roads with it. So there's
Yeah, I think-
differences.
and I understand, the concept of, buying worn out equipment for primary use. But I think it'd be wise to pursue, when the time is right, a used grader. They're out there. I know we had one, but it's used, but, anyway, so.
There's
so
always
thank
the
you.
auctions
That's right. That is right.
down in Dunnigan.
That is right.
And larger, more simple pieces of equipment compared to a street sweeper, which got a million things that can go wrong on it.
Sure.
Right.
It starts to make more sense.
A Caterpillar grader is pretty straightforward piece of
Well,
equipment.
look at ours. I mean,
Yeah,
1968.
absolutely. Anyway, thank you. Mr. Sprague.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've listed the equipment here. Is this all of what we would classify as equipment as opposed to vehicles compared to pickup trucks and maybe a flatbed truck or something?
Yeah, absolutely. This is only a portion of the total fleet for Public Works.
I think
Okay,
the intent was to just show you, the council, some of the bigger, more immediate ticket items that we have, because these are all fairly immediate. We showed them at the crawl on our boards that we had at every place. We showed a lot of these things that are in the slideshow as immediate need, we're
Think-
kind of running up against the clock.
And we don't have backups for them. It's not, we don't have a backup jet
And
truck.
some are broken, actually. Some are,
Yep.
we're not even, right?
So
Yeah, our stumper's broken. The roller is currently down. So we had to rent a roller in order to do hot patching and do the alley grading work. So yeah, we're at the point of, we chose to do it. It was about, I think, half the cost of the repair to rent it. It's very hard repair. It's a very old piece of equipment. So we're at the point of kind of weighing those
I mean,
options.
we could probably write a dissertation on all the needs that the city has, but we
Yes.
thought we'd focus on the top priorities.
so this is not an all-inclusive of all the equipment? quote
No.
unquote. Not it, okay.
No.
All right. Also, the dates on these, I heard a little bit of what you said, Marty, and I'm not disagreeing with it. But people laugh at my wife and saying that she's still driving a 2000 Avalon, 24-year-old car. Yeah, but 68,000 miles. Okay, so it's hardly worn out is the point I'm getting at. So you've identified the ages here, but are we looking at mileage and or hours of operation to be able to determine that they are somewhat old?
I think we're seeing, so a bigger issue on a lot of these as well is the fact that they're not Tier 4 compliant. So regardless of age of some of the equipment, like a wood chipper from 1986, I don't think you're going to see much more longevity out of that thing.
Okay.
It's probably been pretty used and abused. The leaf vacuum truck, when we look at useful service life, like I said, most of the time it's a pretty good analysis on when these things are not going to save, they're not going to be cost effective anymore. So when we see things of 14 years, 15 years, 17 years, 20 years past their service life, we've got a pretty good indication that the maintenance costs are really going to start outweighing the benefit that we're getting from them. So no, this doesn't take into consideration the hours of the machinery. But I think the failures that we're seeing and the repairs that we're having to make on the majority of these pieces of equipment, combined with the tier 4 compliance that we need for motors, is a pretty good indicator that if we don't start replacing these things soon, they're going to break down and we're not going to have a replacement for them. And they're
Okay.
going to sit there.
I think you've,
Councilmember Sprague, there are constantly things breaking and in disrepair here. It's an ongoing issue in Public Works, in the fire department, and sometimes we can figure out how to do it ourselves. Sometimes we have to contract out, as you know, our mechanic is currently on disability, and so we have to contract out for Public Works. The fire chief, excuse me, the fire chief has negotiated an arrangement with the city of Orland for fire trucks. You know, we don't know how long that's going to last for, but for now it's okay. But sometimes the volunteers fix our fire trucks. I mean, I hear almost pretty much every other day something that's broken, or I get told, can we buy this piece of equipment or this part for this piece of equipment or vehicle? You know, it's going to cost this much. Is it okay to spend the money? I feel like that's like an every other day occurrence for me.
okay. So the short answer to my question is, yes, we're looking at things beyond just the dates of the age of the equipment. We're looking at wear and tear and the mileage and.
Yeah,
or
repair
hours.
costs.
Repair costs. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Any further, Mr.
Just
Sprague?
for fun, Joe, we have a blade and a roller. You want to use them free.
No comment. I don't.
Talk about that later.
You could make a
We'll get free.
donation.
Yeah, you can donate to the city.
Mr. Sprague, did you have anything further? No. Okay, thank you. Anything further? Mr. Bud?
I just
What
wanted
was
to
for,
offer.
what's for free? What do you have? I heard food.
We have a moto grader, a blade, and we have a roller that sit around most of the time. So I'd be happy to drive them to town and lay all the driveways, alleys.
Because our roller doesn't.
Yeah, we got busted drum and it's really old and it was one of those we took in there and like, yeah, we don't know what to do with this. So we had to kind of inquire around to local other public works crews and figure out a game plan for it. The problem with those rollers is it's just a tremendous labor cost to get what we need to replace. You know, how it goes cheap part. Got to dismantle the whole thing to get to it. So
Well, no, just, you know, I know when you, Public Works first started the alleyway grading project, they did a fantastic job, by the way. You had two of your team members on the grader, right? Who
Yep.
were they?
I believe it was Matt and Josh. were
Matt
on
and
the grader.
Josh,
Yep.
okay. They did an awesome job. They ran the
Awesome.
blade, they ran the blade very well. And then they had breakdowns. Grader
Then-
breakdown, they had roller breakdowns, but they
We
got it
through
done.
Pick it back up. So that
Yeah,
was,
they
that
got
was a
it.
good thing.
They did a great job.
We'll
Great
let them
job.
know. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. But, you know, Joe, thank you for your, you know, your report. And this was a great overview and not a comprehensive report. It was perfect. And as you indicated, and it was good questioning in reference to it, you know, Mr. Sprague's question, is this all the equipment? Right, exactly. No, it's the primary equipment. And this equipment gets used a lot, extensively with a lot of hours on the leaf truck. What year is the leaf truck again?
No, it is.
Yeah, it's here, but
yeah,
it's picked up
89.
tons of leaves and you just hope it gets through another year.
And that's one that I think when you talk about the auxiliary blower, the motor on the auxiliary, that's where you've got tier 4 compliance things with that as well, not just the main motor. But yeah, and the more, like I said, the more specialty the equipment, the more that use over the useful life really hurts it. You get into more expensive repair costs.
Sure, and you know, it's great information to have because we have needs and these needs are expensive, but the street sweeper, that piece of equipment,
Yeah.
that's got a lot of hours on it. I mean,
Yep.
it gets, you know,
Used a lot.
it's necessary piece of equipment.
It's
And-
in for maintenance right now at about $4,500 to keep it going. It's the specialty and it's a lot of wear and tear. And not that it's that old, but it's just the cost of fixing things that need to avoid a catastrophic failure.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, what I appreciate about your report is you've outlined all of the services that fall under your umbrella, under your areas of responsibility. And when I talk about core city services all the time, that's exactly what I'm talking about, the core city services. And public works, health and safety issues, these are core city services that we have an obligation and duty to provide to our citizens. And it's very difficult to do so currently with our budget constraints and economic position. These are things that we have to do, services we have to provide. And you and your team do an amazing job providing those services. So thank you very much to you and to your entire staff and all the outstanding, extraordinary work that you do with limited resources and limited personnel day in and day out.
Very
Uh,
appreciative. Thank you.
Very, very unsung work, much of it, but it has to get done. You do it well. If it doesn't get done, believe me, the phone would be ringing when there's raw sewage and the like running down the
Yeah.
streets. People would probably notice that. But this is all very, these are extremely important. Much of it behind the scenes work. It's in plain view, but it's behind the scenes work. And I can guarantee you that a large number of folks have no idea what your staff do day in and day out across the board. It's just, yeah, you do an awesome job. So thank you very much for what you do.
And Joe, here's that article that identifies all
With
the
the
stuff
city
that
of Orland.
Orland is thinking about doing. If you want to take it, I
Yep.
highlighted it.
I will grab that at the end. David.
Thank
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask a
Yeah.
couple quick questions?
Oh,
Unless you're done, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, just 30
Okay. No,
seconds
you're
and then, and then I'll wrap up. But on your economic development, wanted to, basically, like to commend the hotel to apartment conversion at 725 South Amos Street. That the owners have done just a fantastic job with that reconstruction. It looks really good. I know they're still working at it. That's always been a well-maintained property by the previous longtime owners there. But, I mean, those are the types of project along with the fourplex
Mhm.
at 245 South Amos Street. Those are just great projects and they just do so much cleanup
Yep.
to or entryways. And so needed. And, thank God for Red 88 Restaurant. They got a
Yep.
great business going there. They've done marvels with that building and their facility. So thank you for the information, Joe. So Evan, please.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. I just had a couple
you're
quick
fine.
questions. You mentioned the infrastructure for Basin Street.
Mhm.
Do we know like what type of infrastructure needs to be laid out for these businesses to want to look? Are you talking completed streets and sidewalks? Are you talking we need the hydrants installed and power ran through there? Is it all of that combined? Is
It's
it
all of it.
More
All
the
of it.
merrier.
It's pretty much all of it, all that's basically greenfield development, meaning that there's, nobody's broken ground to do any of the undergrounding of utilities, sewage, sidewalks, curb and gutter, all of those things would have to be done to build there. And that's, in large part what is preventing anybody from being interested in the property for so long is because that is very, very costly. So it's not the pretty stuff that you see above ground, but you need it. You have to have that infrastructure. And so nobody, usually you can't make a project pencil if you have to do all of that. In addition to the building itself and tenant improvements,
and that makes
it's hard to make it pencil.
and
So
that makes sense. Have we ever done a cost estimation as to what that would actually cost the city to do
it's
that?
private property. It's actually their responsibility to do it. We could try to help them. I don't think we're in a good position right now, but that is all private property. So
But is there sort of cost analysis done on what it would cost
I
to
think they've done one.
I think it's
Yes.
like 9
yeah.
million.
9 million? So is that, I'm just spitballing here. So is that something like where if we got the CDGB grant, we could apply that to,
They are very interested in having us be the applicant on a grant application
okay,
I don't think it would be enough money to do everything, A, and B, I think, and Joe can speak to this more than I can because he's more recently written a grant, but a big concern for the city would be, there are rules and regulations for fully implementing a project when you use federal funds like that and making sure that you get a commitment from the developer to actually complete the project in a timeline and schedule so that you can meet your compliance requirements with the feds
right?
is really important. And it's risky to be applying for grants for somebody's private property, right? Because
Mhm.
it's different when you own it. When the city owns it, we can do all sorts of wonderful, creative things. There's all sorts of tools available to us to write down the value of property, to encourage, incentivize development, to go for grants. And then we're on the hook to make sure something happens, enter into an agreement and exclusive right to negotiate with somebody. With
And I-
private property, it's hard to, make anybody do
I
anything.
understand that. There's a lot of red tape and stuff. I just didn't know if it was even a possibility or not. I didn't know if that was even like an option for, you're talking, I mean, it sounds like you're asking the city for ways to help with that. So I'm trying to figure out how that way is.
We just recently had a meeting with Basin Street, and they brought on a new, consultant who is very good at, grants and finding money. So I brought up our, our CDBG experience, and where they've looked at other HCD grants, infill infrastructure grants. So basically this initial meeting was kind of get her up to speed. And she's worked at the state level within these organizations, government organizations. So I think they're on a very good path. And I think they're going to come back with either grants that they can apply for or things that we might be able to apply for. But that's like Marty said, it makes it tough. We've got to make sure that we're not on the hook for anything where we're going to have this money back. But it's been a good relationship. And I think they brought on a great resource who's going to do a lot of legwork and trying to find some money for this infrastructure improvement.
Okay. And then my second question goes back to the public works and the equipment. Has anybody ever talked to like the county about saying, hey, we both use a road grader. They use it obviously probably 90% of the time compared to we would use it 10, but doing a cost share on a piece of equipment like that the city of Willows doesn't use full time
We've
But-
got price rates, what it costs per hour for their equipment.
for their equipment.
And
Okay.
you're better off running, I mean, it's expensive. So, but
Gotcha.
that again, is not a cost share contract like you're talking about. So
Mhm.
that is something that could be explored. I just don't know what their current economic situation.
We also have to figure out, do they need the grader when we need the grader? Is their grader still good? Because what we'd be sharing on a new piece of equipment, right? Is what I'm
Right.
saying.
No, and I understand
Yeah,
that.
so we would have to figure that out with them.
Oh, yeah.
We
that's
have
good.
not entertained those conversations.
Sorry, I thought you were talking existing equipment. Were you thinking of like if we,
Next time, hey, we need to buy, let's say,
yeah,
a grader or, something that isn't necessarily used all the time by both sides. That could easily be, it's not going to be a scheduling conflict, I guess,
yeah,
It's challenging.
it is because the construction season, everybody's going.
going full steam.
There's some things same time
Yeah,
because
right.
some of it's seasonal and
And that's
public
why I
works,
mentioned the
yeah.
grader, because I'm thinking we use that about 2 weeks a year, 3 weeks a year.
It just
Uh,
do
right.
material wise. But yeah, exactly. There's also the option of doing a rental that probably avoids those situations like Marty's talking about. When you've got it available. United Rentals, those kinds of things.
And I
also
should
look-
just mention that the county's pricing has gone up considerably, just in the short time I've been here from, like using their mechanic services. For example, when we first started needing to use them 3 years ago, the difference, they just increased considerably their
Yep.
hourly rate. That makes it, not as competitive as with maybe the private sector. So we're not using them for mechanic services at this time.
Learned something new. That's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Just one last question. Do you still have the Cat 3T cable bulldozer that used to be housed at the wastewater treatment plant?
I do not know.
Okay.
I do
But
not
you-
know. Not that I know of, but
Well, it was used for the ponds.
yeah,
Pond maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't believe so. Not that I've heard up since I've been here, but I can check on that.
Oh,
for you,
I was just
Gary.
well, we can later.
Yep.
About that. I was just curious, since it was on your list. Well, gentlemen, any further questions, comments for Joe?
Thank you. Very good
Thank-
presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you
Very
guys.
insightful.
Good presentation, very good information. Thank you for updating us, bringing us up to date on your operations. Vital services. Moving on to item 6, public comment and consent calendar forum, I'm sorry. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and are approved by one motion and vote unless council members or the city manager first request that a matter be removed for separate discussion and action. Individuals wishing to address the city council concerning consent calendar items or regarding matters that are not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes at this time. And please address your comments to the mayor and council members and not to staff and or the audience. And as a reminder, by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any items not appearing on the posted agenda. First, is there any public comment on any matters not on the agenda this evening? Any public comment? Any public comment in reference to the consent calendar? I'll read the consent calendar this time. Item 6A, the consent calendar consists of the register approval. Consider approval of the general checking, payroll, and direct deposit check registers. Item 6B, minutes approval. Consider approval of the September 10th, 2024 council meeting minutes. And item 6C, electrical facilities cost sharing agreement with Caltrans. Consider authorizing the city manager to execute an electrical facilities cost sharing agreement with Caltrans.
Mr.
Questions, comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have questions, but we're going to leave them on the consent calendar.
Very good, Mr. Buden.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay, let me see if I can.
Just a quick question. Having been on several committees and councils and boards of supervisors, the most recent meetings that I've missed are the first ones I've ever missed. I apologize for that. But my question to you, Mr. Mayor, since I did not attend the last meeting, is it appropriate for me to say yes or no on the minutes, or do I?
Yeah, Mr. Sprague, as long as you've read the minutes, you may
Okay.
vote.
I don't.
There's no reason to abstain as long as you've read the minutes.
Okay, very good.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mr. Buden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, on the electrical program with Caltrans, we did 50-50 before, right? No, we did 100% of the electrical and they did 100% of the maintenance. So here's the questions. How did you consider the potential cost of maintenance that will fall under our jurisdiction now? Is there a cap on an annual basis for this undefined cost? And is it possible that some of the existing light systems will need to be replaced and we could get stuck for a much bigger cost as a result?
So this is an agreement that was brought to us by Caltrans to update the existing. If you remember, some months ago, we did the updated delegated maintenance agreement, which was the street sweeping agreement with Caltrans. This also came to us at the same time. We held off on bringing this forward as I want to discuss with our engineer the possibilities of how this looks for us going from 100% electrical to a 50-50 on maintenance. So this is a Caltrans originated contract. It's what all Caltrans contracts are going to. And yes, it comes with a pretty much guaranteed average quarterly maintenance cost of, sorry, I don't have that one here, I believe of 465 for the 4 lights times 4 quarters comes out to about 7,440. So even with the electrical offset and reduction of going down to the 2 lights, you're still going to be paying, what is that, $1,200 more per year. And there's the possibility of major failure that comes with that as well, that we would be on the hook for. Stoplight has a major traffic signal, has a major malfunction, gets ran over. So yes, there is definitely some risk associated with that compared to the price of PG&E go up while we pay for electricity.
So your analysis indicates that we will pay more money for this new deal.
On an
I think you
average,
just said
yes,
it.
with the potential of larger
Yeah.
bills for light replacement, which is probably an every 5-year thing, Caltrans indicated, and then major things that come up. So yes, it will be.
If we didn't approve this, do we have options?
So I talked with the engineer, city engineer about that. He said that most likely not. He said that this is the updated agreement. Caltrans' response was that is this is the agreement that we do to basically have a
Shift the burden.
fair relationship with our local jurisdictions.
I see. I would like to take this off the consent calendar so we can vote against it.
Okay,
I would like to just mention that there used to be 2 additional streetlights that we were paying for that have now been removed from
Yeah.
here because we shouldn't be paying for them. So there's that cost break.
Thank you.
I would insert the fact that we're also replacing an agreement from 1987. So costs rise. I get that. Caltrans, the state doesn't do anything with, it's not beneficial to the state. We know that.
Anything further, Mr. Buden or Mr.
But
Thomas?
it would be nice if when Caltrans redoes 162, which is imminent, correct? That they modify, replace, or otherwise alter these lights to reach better than 1987 standards. I remember when the light was on Butte and Sycamore, we just turned it off because we didn't need it. Now we got the one on Tehama and Sycamore flashing instead of functioning as a light.
So those would be outside of the Caltrans purview.
I got it.
And
you're
I think
right.
our cost agreement was updated in
The
05.
one on Tehama's in, isn't it? The flasher, that's on state.
No, it's city.
Yeah.
City.
That
City
abandoned,
pays for that one.
Very good,
no longer state highway.
Not since 1966, David.
very good. I
Point of
still wanna-
order, Mr. Mayor, we pulled this item from the consent or?
So, Mr. Vaughn, you still requesting to pull
Yes,
item
I'd like
six C?
to make a public
So
statement.
we will pull item six C from the consent calendar at this time and have separate discussion on item six C. Any further questions or comments in reference to item six A or six B?
Move
Pleasure.
to approve items A and B.
Very good, Mr. Thomas. They're just calling for a pleasure of the council.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Thomas has moved to approve items six A and B as presented, and Mr. Vaughn has the second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to item six C. Discussion?
Well, we're in a situation where our budgets and our finances and our income streams are challenged to the moon. So I'm just, if I can do nothing tangible or real to stop the potential increase in costs and the possibility that one or more of these two lights could have a significant need for expensive maintenance or repair or replacement, then at least I would like to let the people know that we didn't go down without a little no vote.
Anything further, Mr. Vaughn?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
The comments in reference to the electrical facilities cost sharing agreement with Caltrans? Any other comment?
I got a quick question. So you said that they're including 2 more lights to this?
It'd be too less.
No,
That,
two
yep.
lights.
yeah.
We were paying for 2 that we shouldn't have been. And to former council member Williams' credit, he did raise this issue a while ago in his job on the finance committee. And I did contact Caltrans and they were unresponsive, but now that they'd like an agreement, seems like they've realized that we shouldn't be paying for 2 lights. So
I believe it, yeah, it's the
So-
northbound and southbound.
The $1,200 a year more that you're saying that we'd be paying would actually be cut down because we're taking 2 more lights out of our
That
budget?
Actually includes the
That
reduction. of the light.
includes those.
For PG&E bills, these are rough estimates, so yeah, approximately.
Now, if we have what happened in Orland where somebody takes out one of your brand new shiny light poles, we're on the hook for 50% of that, what, $1 million cost to replace those light poles and infrastructure and redo the concrete? Am I wrong in that? Because if I remember, that was a really expensive.
Insurance would work on that, how those things would be going after private citizens, but any, it's a maintenance, 50% maintenance cost. So yeah, potentially if there's major malfunctions, we would be on the hook for that.
it doesn't
And that-
address actual replacement.
That would be a question that I'd like to get an answer to is who's actually insuring that equipment then? Is that going to go on Caltrans and then we're helping pay their deductible as part of that maintenance agreement? Or if somebody does take it out, is that completely on them?
I think it should be addressed
that
in the
point.
contract, don't you? It should be
I-
specifically stated, under
feel like
these
that's- yeah.
circumstances, this happens.
So
I
total
guess that'd be
maintenance
more-
costs shall be based on actual costs, including but not limited to the cost of repairs and replacement of the devices, the cost of regular inspection and maintenance, labor
answer.
of all of that,
Mhm.
electrical energy, which is our other share. So yep, they would,
But here's another one, Councilman Evan Hudson, is, so we have an issue where some business truck wipes a pole out. They have insurance. Somebody has to go after them. Is it us or is it Caltrans? And then if they do get a settlement, how does the settlement dispersed? Do we get all of ours back or do we split that half? So there's just, I hope these things are in this agreement.
Well, there's
I-
Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Hudson, your questions are exactly where my questions are in reference to knockdown issues. I didn't see that even mentioned in the contract. with the
How
staff.
about we continue the item to October
Yes.
8th and we get answers to these
Yes,
questions?
we need these answers, absolutely. And also the fact that it was mentioned that, is this something that Caltrans is doing with every jurisdiction, or why all of a sudden is this coming up here?
it's the standard.
Yeah,
Yes.
Standard statewide.
Because
So-
technically we have until 2026 when they actually do the project, correct? Or is it
This
something-
didn't come about because of the project. No, when we
Oh,
asked.
this is just in general. This isn't.
Yeah, when we asked for the upgraded agreement for the delegated maintenance so that we could be paid properly for the street sweeping of 162,
Mhm.
that's when this came over as well. They sent us to it, but so we brought forward the delegated maintenance. wanted to take additional time to try to understand the electrical maintenance, knowing that it was going to be a different cost share. The responses from Caltrans have, kind of tried to get there of what happens if we don't sign this agreement. They state the language is obsolete, has updated language and percentages. This ensures the maintenance and operation costs of electrical assets are shared equitably between Caltrans and the city.
So I'd write an addendum that as a condition of signing that they reimburse us for all the money we erroneously paid to them over the years for the two lights. As a condition.
That only goes one way and it normally goes.
That
back.
doesn't make it
come back
right.
down.
Doesn't make it right.
But we can definitely, I will do some further investigation on that. Marty and I will. bring
We're
that
not
back.
used to it.
And Caltrans is primary. I mean, these are their signals.
Yep.
Okay, they're state-owned signals. So they handle all the maintenance and that sort of thing. But no, yeah, there are a lot of questions here. If you could,
Yep.
if you could dial that in on the knockdown issues, the traffic collision issues, and obviously insurance would be involved and all the moving parts involved there. And you've already indicated that this is a statewide issue. If you could maybe verify that.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so yeah, just a lot of questions.
The knockdown thing, yeah, I do not, I mean, they say maintenance, it kind of looks like it to me, but I definitely want to verify that as that is a huge, huge cost above and beyond.
Well, and we have a knockdown
When
fund,
you look at-
obviously, with the signalization system at Airport Road and
Mhm.
162 with Walmart. That's we have a knockdown or fund with. But anyway, so very good. Well, thank you. We'll
Yep.
we'll
So-
continue item 6C.
Just one quick question.
Mr.
The
Thomas.
465 that was responded to my question on this, is that per light?
That is per light per quarter. So that's where I got
I
the
didn't- I
7,000.
didn't gather that.
Oh, yeah, so that is, per light per quarter. So we're looking at annual.
So each maintenance would be $1,860 per light. And there's 4 lights.
That, yes, that sounds correct. I got 7,400 and something per year. Not including major light change out, which they do mention in their email. It happens every, they say 5 to 10 years of just swapping lights. They mentioned sizable cost on those. Expect fairly sizable expenditures periodically. This is primarily due to group relamping. This activity takes place every 5 to 10 years.
Well, my
Very good.
number only comes to 5,440, so.
I'm bad at math too, so.
All right, so we'll continue this.
Yep.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Marty and Joe.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay, anything further in reference to item 6C? That's been continued for future discussion? Very good. Item 7, discussion action calendar. Item 7A, sidewalk rehabilitation cost share program. Consider adoption of a resolution to establish a sidewalk rehabilitation cost share program. Joe Bentoncourt, our Community Development and Services Director, will be presenting. Before I turn it over to Joe, Marty Brown, any comments?
Yes. I just wanted to remind the council of the history of this. This all kind of got started initially when comments were made about the condition of our sidewalks and the responsibility of the property owner adjacent to a sidewalk to repair their sidewalks. And then Vice Mayor Hudson had asked for a presentation from our risk management team. We did that. And then that, eventually led to looking at a cost share program, among other things, including updating language in our municipal code was also discussed. And so, this has been a summer-long project that Joe has worked on with our former intern, Helen Harlan, who was going to originally be here when we thought we were going to present it a few weeks ago. She started school and not available. So Joe's going to be presenting it, but I just wanted to, remind you that the way that we approached this was to review the history of this conversation, including past reports from 2021 before I even started here that Coastline Engineering did and presented to the prior council back then. And quite a bit of research, talking to other cities online to get us to this point. So there's been quite a bit of vetting at the staff level of what's been possible. I know members of the council have asked several questions about could we do this? Could we do that? I think we've answered all those questions. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of options because we're using public funds to be able to lower the costs of repairs for sidewalks for either the resident or commercial property owner and or the city. So that's what got us to this point and the current program that Joe will be presenting. I also just wanted to mention that if at the end of this, the council wants to not do this, continue it until we see the results of the CDBG application, certainly we can do that, but I know this is, a lot of history and background, but we're following, kind of the direction we got several months ago. That's what finally got us here tonight. With that, Joe.
Thanks, Marty. And yes, that is a great overview of the history. Staff did look at multiple other examples, a lot of which we're coming back to council with problems or reports of problems. We've seen programs that go out and tell the homeowner, basically give them a notice to abate and then do the project and then charge them 50% of the sidewalk. We've seen programs where the municipality has attempted to have the homeowner go out and get 3 quotes and do the procurement side of it. Those don't tend to work out. It's very hard. Since this is a public funded cost share program, we are not exempt from doing prevailing wage. We are not exempt from following all of our procurement standards. They cannot go pick their own contractor. They will have to do this project in accordance with all of the guidelines that we would have to do them. So that presents a problem of having a homeowner try to follow these usually pretty complicated guidelines, and then paying prevailing wage becomes a big hassle. So the program that staff, and thanks to Marty and John Wanger and our intern and everybody that worked together on this. From the procurement side of it, from the project management side of it, from the prevailing wage side of it. And it basically is an application period that we would open up. People would submit their projects for their residents. We've got a total cap of project that would be $5,250 per project. And that's based on a $35 square foot installation cost at a 5-foot sidewalk at a 60-foot frontage. So we tried to use the most average things we could to determine that cap. If somebody replaced their whole sidewalk, it would be approximately the maximum of what they would be reimbursed for. The reason we chose to do a deposit and an upfront payment in this program is we don't want to go through this project and not be able to recoup these funds. We need a guarantee prior to go out to bid. And that's why we require payment in this project, in this program, to be made before the item goes out to bid. Because if we go out to bid with a group of projects, I'll go back, which is the plan, is to take applications in through May with deposits. And then from May through June, I believe, we would be reviewing, rating, ranking, if we're oversubscribed to the program on which ones we're going to do. And then we would select those applications that are within critical walking paths, are the most damaged. And then we would move forward with a full-on bid document for all of the selected projects at once. So we would go out to bid something similar we did with our sidewalk rehab program that was just completed. This location from here to there, we would require, like I said, the payment to be completed 100% by the landowner prior to going out to bid. And the projects would then go out to bid as a group to hopefully achieve cost savings. As the more work that is done, the cheaper it becomes. And the city would manage the program from that point. We've got a minimum of 1,000 square feet that we would need to be subscribed to in order to do this program. That's just due to the fact of if we don't have at least 1,000 square feet, we don't think we can, there's a potential not to have the cost savings and make it a not viable program. And it's just too few of projects. So we do have a minimum threshold. And then obviously projects would be chosen up to a maximum of a $25,000 worth of city funding. So the budget control aspect is there as we would be only selecting projects up to that cap. So if we're oversubscribed, we would limit the project award within that budgetary number. So it does allow us to control the amount that's spent, which then controls the budgeted amount for that year. I think that's where I'll leave it at if you guys have questions.
Very good, Mr. Betancourt. Questions, comments from the council? Who would like to begin? Mr. Sprague?
Yes, please. Thank you. I provided everybody a final map of the last subdivision that I did in town. The discussion that we had last time, it seemed to be questionable of who actually owns the sidewalk. And so as a builder developer, it's been my experience that I end up putting the facilities in, but then I dedicate those facilities to the city of which I'm working. And using this as an example, owner's statement, making reference to up in the top left-hand corner of what I gave you there, making reference to myself, Forrest J. Sprague Company, Inc., that I do hereby offer for dedication for specific purposes to the following: Applewood Way, Applewood Court, to the city of Willows and fee simple, as shown herein of the public, herein for all public purposes. And you'll see then on the right-hand side in the middle of the page there, top portion of the page, city manager statement. City manager of the city of Willows, the city of California, do hereby state that the dedication as shown on this map and therein offered for dedication to the city of Willows for specific purposes were accepted by the city and so on. Now, this was 2006, I think we finalized this. 2006. So that's fairly recent by comparison, but I'm sure that all the development of the city of Willows goes back to similar deeds or dedication of the properties of the street improvements to the city in fee simple. What is important about the term fee simple and what does ownership mean? Fee simple ownership, in fee simple ownership, the land and the structures on it are owned outright with no limitations. That's the legal term. That is the most effective ownership classification that you can have that indicates that the property is in fact, and its structures and any improvements sitting on that is in fact owned, in this case, by the city. The point there is just to make clarity here that the city is in fact ownership of that particular property. I also included on my own house over on Green Street in Applewood is my property pin, which is 5 foot 4 inches back of side. Rest of that is city-owned property, city and public utility easement. There's no private ownership of any of that particular property. Having said that, what really catches my attention here on the back of our attachments here, attachment 2, in reference to the owners of the properties that are adjacent to the city sidewalks and so on, shall maintain the sidewalk in such a condition that the sidewalk will not endanger persons or property and maintain it in a condition which will not interfere with the public convenience and the use of the sidewalks. That's very simple. When somebody takes ownership of a new home or any home, new ownership of the home, they agree that they're not going to damage the sidewalk, they're not going to block the sidewalk, but they're going to, in fact, maintain it in the condition of which they received it. And just because they've owned it and own it now because of street trees or truck traffic or other incidences that cause damage to the sidewalk should never be part and parcel of the responsibility of the homeowner. I would point to my own subdivision, if I might, that I recently walked that entire subdivision and there are no broken sidewalks some almost 20 years later that were caused by me during the construction of homes or by anybody else after ownership changed, save one. There was one, there were two remaining lots, empty lots that were sold out that I did the streets, curbs and gutters. The most recent builder built a new home there about 5 or 6 years ago. Went against my caution of how to protect the sidewalks and did in fact break up 3 or 4 sections of the sidewalk, which the city engineer rightly said, you're not going to get a certificate of occupancy until you fix those sidewalks. Now, if you were to go down the rest of Green Street, you'll see the 3-home complex that I built in 1980, 89, 90, I think. And there are no broken sidewalks on the street sidewalks at that point. Then you look at the lots that were built by another builder, you can see where they backed over their lumber trucks, their concrete trucks or whatever and broke up the city sidewalk. They then building officials or whatever signed off and gave the building a certificate of occupancy, but those new buyers, some of them are second and third time buyers, should not be held responsible for the breakage of the sidewalk that happened and occurred before their particular ownership. Last, let me just conclude with this, and I don't know who made the inquiry, it's not me, but on item 7A, the city manager gave us an update on an inquiry that she received and asking if this was premature based on the council's direction to pursue the city grant, for sidewalk grant. I would suggest that it would be premature to come up with some sort of game plan here with the idea that the last analysis that we received from the city engineer was right at just a tad over $6 million to repair and replace all the existing sidewalks that are damaged now, any that have any defects or whatever, even to the point of replacing or installing the handicap, the orange or the yellow bubbled, there's a name for it. I can't think of it.
Undulations.
Pardon me?
Is it undulations?
Yes, thank you. In there. So it's a very all-inclusive cost breakdown for our existing situation. If I understand correctly, the grant application that we're going for the city's sidewalk replacement is $3 million. That would be 50% of the existing problem. The point I'm getting at is if we were to able to get that grant, we identified the most needy locations, that potential list of cost share with the homeowners could go down substantially. So I would I'm just suggesting that, as city manager pointed out, is this something that we want to take action on now, or do we want to defer it to another time? And I'm going to suggest that we refer it to another time, that we postpone it, table it, whatever you want to refer to it.
If I may, I'd like to make one point of clarification. As part of the CDBG application process, we actually have to state upfront what sidewalks, the locations of the sidewalks that would be repaired. So we're using the Safe Routes to School report that's already identifies several of them, and working with the city engineer to identify the remaining up to a project application of what, 3.2 million?
3.3.
3.3 million. So there won't be a later selection. We're going to know, on October 30th, when hopefully we submit our over-the-counter application, exactly which ones we're proposing, because it's a requirement of the grant. It's not that we want to do it. It's just required to articulate and state exactly the location of the project area.
Speak next.
That's a quick question. And at one point I asked if we get the grant or if we have a fund set up, people to draw from, that we can, if they pull the permits and they do the work, that we can do a reimbursement with that money. Was that ever decided we could or could not do that?
It's just all subject to, since it's public funds,
Mm-hmm.
they would have to follow all the regular guidelines that we would have to follow. Like
So
we just
they'd
did.
still have to go out and.
Oh,
Failing
everything.
wage,
Yeah,
yep, they
all
have to do all that,
Yeah.
because it's public funds.
And we looked into that, like, oh, this would be great if
I
we
couldn't
could just,
remember if I got an answer on that or what the answer was.
yeah, it's unfortunately
Re-ask
because
that.
it's
Okay.
use of public funds, it hits the requirement of everything we would have to do, they would have to
And
do.
it's cumbersome. That's why we don't recommend that the public try to do what we do, because it's a difficult, detailed, cumbersome process.
See some examples of it, and like I said, they were examples of them coming back to their board or their city and saying, this doesn't work. You just too much potential for something to be done incorrectly, and then the city's on the hook for it ultimately, because we're the ones giving the public funds.
So could you essentially go with a model, let's say a Model 3, but then still put the liability and the maintenance of that sidewalk back on the homeowner?
1 second, sorry.
The Model 3 is where it's a fully funded sidewalk repair program, but if we funded the replacement of their sidewalk and said, no, but we'll replace it, but this is gonna be your responsibility from here on out. So if you
Yeah, absolutely.
mess it up, then this is on you.
And bigger conversation, but with the streets and highways code, I mean, to me, it kind of, it solves what Mr. Sprague's alluding to, where here's your brand new sidewalk. You're now responsible for it,
Mhm.
for the remainder of it. Absolutely. So the city implementing a full funded sidewalk repair program is basically what we're doing in a small portion right now with our annual sidewalk rehabilitation program that we
Mhm.
just finished up. It would be RSTP funds being obligated, or general fund, probably not, to a sidewalk repair program. And fully funded by us, what that cap is, and determining, but that would just be us going out fixing sidewalks.
Okay. So
Like I
then-
said, we've seen programs where the cities do fix sidewalks and just invoice the homeowner.
Mhm.
They give them a notice to abate, or they
Right,
go out
and-
and they fix a whole block and they say, here's half of your bill for what was fixed in front of you. So
Okay. And then with that, on the amounts that I'm seeing listed here, if you were to do it, let's say per house, would that allow us to use our own public works, or would it still have to be contracted out?
check it out. I think it's RSTP funding would be the
Or just they
source.
require?
I'm
Oh, you
90%
just wanted
sure.
to contract. Yeah, we would have to contract out for that project
Ye-
service.
Yeah, because I think I think with that kind of funding.
Yeah.
It's state funded or with federal mix in, that regardless of the threshold of the
We don't-
project.
we don't have the Public works people, we don't have the capacity either to be
Oh,
doing
no, and
sidewalk repairs.
I
and
understand
stuff,
that.
yeah.
I was speaking more of which, instead of paying contractors, if we had the public works staff to handle that, could they say, hey, this homeowner or this section of sidewalk needs to be replaced? It's under our cap of having to go out to public bid with our general fund money. Can we have our own public works replace, let's say, this
Section.
200 linear feet of sidewalk, rather than having to go out and get 3 bids and go through all the extra process?
I think because of the funding source, it would be a requirement.
been.
Maybe, it may be, and I'm not sure on this, different if it was a general funded.
I've only seen
But-
much bigger cities that have the internal capacity
There's
and
definitely,
expertise to do it, to do what you're suggesting. I
asking.
haven't seen it anywhere like a city this size.
Compliance is complicated too. I mean, you've got cross slope, you've got slope, you've got no less than an 1/8 inch gap, you can't have a crack. And then if we do it, we're on the hook for repair and no warranty for it after the fact. So there is some risk to those things too.
Gotcha.
So the standards are tough. You want somebody who's in the game of doing that and not
Knows their
saying we
stuff.
couldn't do it, but it's, yeah, it could be hard.
If I may, I might have some information for you in reference to that, Evan. Many years ago, the city of Willows, there were 11 public works members, 11, staff of 11. There was a city council vetted program with an annual minimal budget, wasn't a lot of money. It was first come, first serve, and it was a sidewalk replacement by the property owner. And the property owner paid for the materials, and the city public works team supplied the work. And it was all hands on deck. Each project would be basically a day or two. The entire crew would be out there, or the vast majority of them, and they'd hit it and get it done. And it was like, as a first come, first serve with minimal funding. And I did partake in that program many years ago. It was a good program, but that was a long time ago. So that helped.
And then my last question, no, it does, thank you. On the fiscal impact that you have on the last page of this, on page 28, it talks about $25,000 per year. That would go away if we did option our Model 1, correct? If it was all on the property owners? And would that go back into our general,
Yeah, I mean, so.
general
if-
fund?
If I'm remembering, so it'd just be an obligation yearly of funds. We wanted this to be a year-to-year program depending on RSTP funds, because you are going to be taking away from a road construction project, right? So depending on funding, there's that part of it. So the repairs being back to the property owner. Yeah, the funds aren't budgeted now. We currently budget 50,000. Well, we budgeted 50,000 to do our sidewalk rehab program, which is what we talked about a little bit tonight in the report. But you can do active enforcement, which is kind of what the street and highway code, I believe, alludes to. You see a dangerous sidewalk, you should be actively enforcing a notice to abate. We don't do that. We're not going out and saying, you need to fix your sidewalk in front of your house, or we're going to go pay a contractor to do it. And you're going to give us they're going to give us all the money for it. Like I said, we saw examples of other cities of, hey, we're doing your block. There's 6 houses. You don't get a choice in it. They're doing your block and they're sending each house half of the bill for the portion of their sidewalk. So there's ways you can actively enforce these things. You can choose to not, and maybe increase your liability. You can do applications that split it.
Well,
So
and I think the idea of going out and trying to bill people isn't going to work in rural Willows, California too well. I think.
no,
you're gonna
I would
get a
not
lot of-
recommend that
I
idea.
think you're gonna get some backlash if you tried that method. But I do have to agree with Forrest. I think there's a couple of unknowns as far as the funding when it comes to our sidewalks that we will learn in the next 2 to 3 months. That maybe we need to look into and see how that goes first before we make a big decision like this.
Any further?
Nope.
Mr. Hudson? Okay, very good. Mr. Vaden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to just clarify that curbs and gutters are not a part of this dialogue or discussion at all. That's purely, okay, thank you so much. So they are not. How do you charge 100% of the cost of doing a project before you bid it?
On the best estimations of $35 a square foot. That's the current.
So
kind
it's
of
a
going.
guess, kind of a guess.
It's an engineer's estimate.
Very good. And then the bid, of course, would adjust it if they paid 100% and a bid came in substantially less or more, they would be obligated.
There's a risk with that portion of it. I mean, we would only refund up to so much. We would only fund up to so much of that project. We feel that $35 is a really good estimate that would be hit, and that's why we have the 1,000 linear or square foot minimum, because we feel with current rates that if we have 1,000 square feet minimum, that we will be in the ballpark of that $35 per square foot.
So that raises the question about, we used $35 per square foot on September 24th of 2024. And a year from now, under this plan, the cost is $55 a square foot. What do you do?
So this would be a one-time allocations per year dependent on funding, so we would adjust that rate. We would be looking to, have the program in place, but fund it yearly.
So if I have a home and my cost, 100% of my cost is X, and the project goes out to bid, the bidding project stumbles, there's a delay, and a year goes by.
Mhm.
I mean, I have trouble with this process, and particularly the 100% upfront. So I made a suggestion, 50% upfront and 50% upon completion. I understand that there's some concern about being reimbursed, but if a person owns a house, I don't think you're at risk. So I'd like, when we go, I'm just going to go along with Forrest too on this one, but when we do this, however we do it, I would like us to consider 50% upfront and 50% upon completion. That way, if a lot of time goes by, some poor neighbor, some poor homeowner's not, coming into the office going, what did I pay for?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's, definitely doable. The thought was to mitigate risk to the city on chasing down funds that are never paid back to them. And then, of course, they own the property, but the process and legal fees and things of that nature of attaching that.
Understood.
Yeah, but I
kind of
see your
don't
point.
see this as a risky financial transaction personally, but anyway, I appreciate that response. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mr. Thomas?
I have some questions because I raised several of those, and I think it might be a little premature based on our application for the CDBG, and we don't know we're gonna get it. Is that mostly gonna be residential sidewalks to be replaced under the CDBG?
It doesn't differentiate. It will be the most need throughout the city.
So I have a real problem in the sense that I happen to be on the safe route to school, so I get a new sidewalk. But a block over, they're not on the safe route, so they don't get that, so
Mm.
they have half the cost. So till we have more funding, perhaps through a sales tax measure or something else, it seems a little difficult how we're gonna justify that to our citizens. What if we made this program for commercial only? And let the commercial owners participate and enjoy some savings in replacing the sidewalk, because I know there's one on Butte Street who just replaced their sidewalk that would have more than happy participated with a 50-50. And if we kept this program to the commercial properties, maybe that would be one way we could do this and make it palatable until we get through November and we see if we get the CDBG, and then we can make another alternative plan for the residential.
It is gonna take, I mean, that sounds fine. It's the discretion of the council. But it is gonna take us a minute to get this ramped up. I mean, I don't really see us being able to do much until after the first of the year in terms of, dialing in all the details of the program and having an application and getting, everything
I
that needs to
understand
be
that.
done. So.
We went forward with the concept commercial, CDBG residential application strictly resulted in residential.
It is not currently designed to
not,
just
yeah.
do residential.
It's not.
Y-
Is
and
that
you're-
a restriction on the grant?
No, it would be, the current thought would be to replace the most in need urgent repair sidewalks. I guess we could apply for just residential sidewalks through CDBG, but that wasn't the thought. And we've got a lot of linear feet we need to identify as well.
So there is a lot of ground to cover to get the application prepared. So we just followed generically the direction last time. We didn't drill down with all of you, as you may recall, of, residential versus commercial. So we're just going after the greatest need.
Well,
So
I
that's a
get that,
combination
and
of
this is
commercial and
all-
residential.
And you all have.
Mhm.
Doing that now. Yeah. Yeah.
So. Just identified sidewalk.
In the
Let
CDBG
program get funded
application?
forward. It's just something that I thought of. I have not driven that much of the commercial district to see if there's any that are really egregious. There are some that are tore up, especially on right where the Brook Valley Indian Health is, so they'll get some of that fixed. They do there. That would be commercial, but it's one way to solve the problem, get some sidewalks fixed, and we don't burden our resident. I don't know, I throw that out for the council thought.
We do anticipate hearing the results of the CDBG application process probably before the end of the year. I mean, this is the over-the-counter one, so they just go until they run out of money. So we will know the results of that in time for this program to implement after the first of the year. But however, the council's discretion, if you want to continue it, wait.
Well, I'd like
do
to see us
commercial.
move forward, get some more of our sidewalks repaired. I'm hoping to get CDBG. I have concerns that we fix this resident's sidewalk and this one doesn't get fixed, and then he's burdened with this extra cost. So the way I see, if we were to do this program, if we limited commercial, then it might be a way to,
Yeah.
those commercial owners who have a business don't want anybody tripping in front of their business. So
Right.
that would be a way we could help the business owners get their sidewalks repaired.
Rick,
And I understand what you're saying on that.
I'll,
My
I'll
thing,
defer.
okay. No, I was just gonna say, my only thing on that would be that, at this point, what we're talking about, our sidewalks are not for necessarily just that business or just that homeowner, they're for everyone that uses them, right? And that's, I think, why the Safer Schools route is kind of created. I would have to say, as a person that owns a commercial property with sidewalks that are in disrepair, I would not have a lean one way or the other on that one. I have my own personal opinion on what I'm gonna do with my sidewalks. But yeah, I understand. I do like the direction that the city staff is currently going with the grant. As far as it just identifying, hey, this is where the kids are walking all the time. We want to make sure that they have the safe routes to get to the schools. That's not about necessarily the homeowner at that point. It's about the kids, right? And so that's where I kind of would counter you a little bit on that, but I understand where you're at, and I do like what you're saying, but I did counter that just a little bit.
Well, I do know on Pacific,
Mm-hmm.
when they repaved Pacific, they replaced 40 feet of sidewalk that was not cracked. It was in really good shape, but it was not, it had a slope to it that was greater from back walk to the curb, greater than what was allowed under the handicap rules. So that had ADA, that had to be replaced. I would hope that we would not be looking at doing sidewalk like that and worrying about those that have a lift or something else.
Yep. So what we're looking at
Or
doing
broken.
this week is getting out, and we've got our ADA assessment study that was done, I believe, in 2015, which goes through and finds and writes cost estimates for all of these minor things as well as major things. So we're taking that and we're going to go out and do a physical look at the streets and use Public Works knowledge, and the routes to schools are a fraction of the total overall. So we're going to use a combination of probably every sidewalk that isn't built in the last 10 years is not going to be in the current ADA standard. So we are going to look to identify those really busted up by roots, large cracks, and knock out those areas as well. It's going to be a lot of sidewalk to do, so we'll have ones that may not have looked bad, but we're definitely going to get the ones that are really bad and then go from there.
If I might, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There's another aspect here is the reality of this is if you look at the scenario that our staff report has on page 27, the bottom two paragraphs talk about 50% split and so on, $35 a square foot, the scenario here for 60 linear feet of sidewalk, $10,500, hence the split would be 5,250. Putting this into kind of a perspective, I have a little dingbat rental over on Second Street in Northeast Willows. I have curb and gutter. The two property owners north of me and south of me both have curb and gutter. That particular street is slated for new asphalt or chip seal next year. So I'm contemplating whether I want to go ahead and put curb and gutter and connect it in and not have a problem. Albeit it's sidewalk, it's not sidewalk, it's curb and gutter, but because the depth and the configuration of curb and gutter and the labor and the excavation, et cetera, it'd be comparable. I have 68 linear feet to put in. My bid on it with a legitimate contractor is $4,800. Using this scenario of splitting 50-50 of the $10,500, I'm saving a couple of $100 by not participating with the city and going 100% with an outside contractor, 100% of my own expense. Point I'm getting at is I don't see commercial or not, and we could use Marvell as a good example. They tore all of that out, trees and everything, and did it all at their own expense. They didn't get any.
The city removed the trees.
I'm sorry?
The city removed the trees.
I'm sorry?
The city removed
Well,
the
okay,
trees.
The city removed the trees, that's fine, but the replacement, the repair, removal and replacement of the sidewalk was 100%.
Yep. We didn't have a cost share program or anything. They engaged the city. We agreed to remove the trees for them as they posed a risk to the sidewalk that was going to be laid.
I mean, the point I'm getting at is if you compare dollar to dollar, it would still be more economical for the homeowner to do it 100% out of pocket and not mess with the program at all.
And that's when we engaged John on that same question, is this going to prevailing wage and upping the price of it, would it still be a cost savings? And he said, yes, and it would be. we're not forcing people to apply for this program. If they've got a bid from a local contractor that's way better than this program, they can fully take advantage of that program. I don't know if these are 5-foot sidewalks or the curb and gutter or those things. But our city engineer, thought that it would be a cost savings to the resident. So we did investigate that because we know that it's a higher cost for government to do work. That's just a fact. You're never going to find a local contractor, that's going to be more expensive than that, but it's still penciled out in his eyes that it would be a significant cost savings on installing 5-foot sidewalk at 60 linear feet, to full ADA compliance. But it is absolutely the right of that landowner to not apply for the program if they can do it cheaper.
Thank you, Joe.
Mhm.
Anything further, Mr. Sprague?
I'm fine.
Thank you. Yeah, Rick, a question for you if, in reference to your, business, concept, with sidewalk replacement business owner concept, would the $5,250 still apply? Would you want to change that number?
Oh, I would just do the 50/50.
Yes, same.
Just keeping this.
Same concept.
When I had to have the trees removed along my building on Shasta Street, the trees were removed. John Barker, I asked him if he would just move the tree wells over 4 feet and just fill in concrete where the old ones were, saw cut. And then there was a repair for a water line, and I agreed to irrigate those tree wells as all part of that process. In the city, I paid for the cement and concrete, and at that time, we had workers that could install the concrete, and it worked out really well. But as a business owner, I saw the problem, and I wanted to make sure my sidewalk was okay for people coming to my business. So I was okay paying for half of that. I would think a business owner might be more inclined to use the program over a resident.
Yeah.
Just one way to move the program forward if we wanted to do the program.
Especially if they
Very
just
good.
bill
An al-
us,
It was an alternative.
No, absolutely.
especially if they just
Good.
bill us and we don't have to go do all the other legwork of permits and design and everything else.
Yeah, Mr. Sprague, you bring up Marv Alsan, if you want to call it, but as far as I know, Mr. Wu's still the owner and he's the property owner and did the right thing by repairing the sidewalk. I know it's costly, but I know what concrete costs, and he did the right thing by repairing it as the property owner. And I disagree. I'd like to see if, so for my colleagues, do we want to spend the money on a legal opinion on who owns sidewalks? Because based on the models and previous discussions we've had in years past in reference to the sidewalk repair issue, with Model 1 that staff presented, repairs are the responsibility of the property owner. Well, a number of cities in Northern California utilize this model. If those sidewalks aren't owned by the city, why are they using Model 1? I totally disagree with your opinion. I bought my house over 40 years ago from my family. Before that, for 35 years, my grandparents owned that house. My grandparents put those my granddad put those sidewalks in. I'm in a corner lot and maintained them and did some replacement. And I've done the same thing. I own the property. The city of Willows does not own the sidewalks around my house, in my yard. That's my property. I maintain that property. I pay taxes on that property. I completely disagree. Thank you for the information here. However, this is a legal question about ownership. I do not believe that City of Willows owns all the sidewalks in the city of Willows. I do not believe that, not for one moment. The only sidewalks that City of Willows owns are the sidewalks surrounding city-owned property, period. The city, our ownership deeds of trust don't include sidewalks in the city other than the sidewalks which are on the property of the City of Willows. If they did, where are our property deeds to all these, however many acres of sidewalks there'd be throughout the city? The city does not own my sidewalks, period. It's the responsibility of the property owner. I am a huge proponent of Model 2, the suggested staff concept. City and property owners split the cost of repairs. If and when we do move forward with this, I think It's doing something for our citizens. It's, with the $5,250, if you want to do the work yourself, or your permits, hire a contractor to do it, whatever, that's fine. As a property owner, that's your prerogative, and we all know that. That's what I've done. I maintain my property. Not everybody maintains their property. I do like the concept, whether it be residential or business. If you wanted, Rick, that's a good, you brought forth a good option. If we want to start this on the business ownership side, then fine. But we've been talking about this for years, and here we are having a discussion. And the reason nothing's been done is because of, somebody's going to be upset with whatever plan we move forward, right? One size does not fit all. There are limited funds, and I think if we move forward with this, let's get a legal opinion on who owns the sidewalks. If the city owns the sidewalks, I for one want to know if we do own the sidewalks. I don't believe we own the sidewalks.
Actually, I can answer that question.
Yes.
Using my title background.
Oh, very good.
In 1972, when they instituted the Subdivision Map Act, that this map was filed, required the dedications that, and so Forrest is right. But you're also right, Gary, because anything that was done prior to that, the property description goes to the center line of the road.
Great. Yes. Mine does, the center of the
So,
street.
Same
Yes.
for, I'm in the Moody subdivision on Pacific. I go to the center line of the road. That's the legal
Mhm.
description. So for anything developed prior to 1972, you own to the center line of the road.
So does that make
Right.
you responsible to fix the potholes on Pacific Avenue? Did you get a bill for the repairs on Pacific Avenue?
I'm just reporting
I know.
what I know from my years in the title business. You own to the center line of the road if your lot was developed prior to 1972.
Right, yes, and the city has an
So your
easement.
house, you
Right.
own to the center line, and that sidewalk would be yours
Yes.
technically,
Yes,
with a public right to use
Yes.
the road.
yes, with a right of way or easement or whatever.
Your house, no. My house, yes.
Well, thanks a lot.
So, and I-
What, you wouldn't know this,
So,
because that's the way it was developed after 1972 in the
so
subdivision map.
this is a question for
Yeah, the answer is
Carolyn.
yes and no.
Can I make a suggestion,
that's-
maybe?
Yes,
Uh,
Marty?
Maybe it would be easier to come back to discuss this once we know the results of the CDBG
I like that.
application. Not just the streets that are identified, but that we actually even get the grant. We don't even know that. And then we could come back and we can come back and have it included a legal opinion about whether or not you still own from the middle of the road to this, whatever. Anyways,
I'd like
we can come
to-
back and clarify some of that. How about that?
I like that. I'd like to ask Carol one question. All of the litigation that has involved trips and falls on city sidewalks on people's land are always involve the city, not the homeowner. So is it court case law? Doesn't it identify the sidewalks as liable to the
It's
city?
both,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
for a good reason, because when people sue, they want to sue anybody. and
Of course,
everybody
I
that they
understand
can.
that.
And remember, this is why, when we had the presentation and we talked about including in our
Right.
own code, a reference back to state law, which says, the state law says that the property owner owns the sidewalk adjacent to their property, but we don't explicitly say that in the code. Our risk management team would like us to do that. We're updating the code. We will be coming back to you with a recommendation to include that language.
And I do believe that language should be included in there. However, the city is responsible for the infrastructure of the city, of how people move around and get around, and how their safety is handled within the city limits, which does fall back on the city, and that does include our sidewalks, and that does include safe passages to our schools. So, like I said, I make a motion that we postpone this agenda item for a later date until we have more information as to the city's financial status.
Second that motion.
Yeah, we can move forward with the motion since it's been moved, seconded, or there could be consensus, but it's too late for that. That ship has sailed. It's been moved and seconded to move this particular item 7A, sidewalk rehabilitation cost share program, to future discussion and analysis. For the discussion?
Just until the CDBG grant's been issued? But we know the results?
we'll know the results of that and our election at the same time, I'm assuming.
No, we anticipate, we don't know, they don't promise anything, but we anticipate to know by the end of December what the outcome is.
Right.
So I'm thinking
So
we
by
would
the
come
end-
back after the first of the year.
Yeah, and we'll know both
Early
both
next
those
year.
results by that point.
Early next year, does that?
I offer that friendly.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded,
Are you good with
Yep.
that? All right. Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Hudson, Mr. Sprague, are you satisfied with the language, amended language to your motion to table this matter to future discussion after, in the early part of 2025?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? I didn't think there'd be any opposition. 5-0 carries, motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll have future discussion on that, on this matter. Moving on to item 7. I'm sorry? Would you like to take, we could take a 10-minute recess, Mr. Vauden. Very good. Time is 8:12. We'll be in recess for approximately 10 minutes. You good, Amos?
Anybody uses that size of a font.
So, hey, I push all my stuff.
Well, good evening again. We're reconvening into open session from our recess. Time is 8:19 PM. Moving on to item 7B, City Planning Services Contract. Consider authorizing the city manager to sign a contract with Harrison Associates to provide city planning services. City Manager Marty Brown.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. The item before you is a recommendation to execute and enter into an agreement for planning services with Harrison Associates, a 3-year contract with a 30-day termination clause. As you may recall, last year in 2023, our contract expired with Wildan, and the council elected to go out with an RFP process in the fall of 23. The result of that, there were 4 proposals that were received, and the interviewing committee moved forward with Laco and Associates with a 1-year contract, which is technically, it expires, not technically, it just expires on September 30th of 2024. And I just want to comment, take a pause really quickly to let you know that you do have a letter on the dais, hard copy letter from Laco Associates. You also have a hard copy, pretty hefty packet from city staff that we can talk about in just a minute. But over the last year in working with Laco and Associates, it really, I think they have turned out to not be a good fit for the city in terms of performance and follow through and attention to detail. And certainly we can get into details on that if the council so would elect to have that conversation. The larger packet that's on the dais documents quite a few of just as a sample or an example of the kinds of challenges that we have had working with the contract planner from Laco and Associates. So when the contract was looked like it was going to be expiring at the end of this month, the staff, we got together and talked about it and thought that this would actually be a good time for the city to make a change and move in a different direction. You know, as you may now be aware, the RFP process is a very lengthy process. It's also an arduous process to prepare for staff internally with our small but mighty staff. And so it's not unusual to not go back out to bid when it's been a relatively short amount of time since the last time we went out to bid, which is, you know, a little over about 12 months ago. And so rather than go through that process, especially considering the time frame and the expiration of the September 30th expiration of the Laco and Associates contract, we went back and interviewed the second choice and of the candidates from the proposals that we received last fall, and unanimously agreed that we would like to give Harrison Associates the opportunity to be the city's contract planner. That pretty much concludes my presentation unless the council has any specific questions for me. And Joe is more adept, I think, than myself because he had a lot more oversight as planning. As you are aware, the planning division does report up through community development and services. And so he had a lot more interaction and is a lot more aware of the kinds of lack of performance that I'm mentioning. I'm trying to keep it high level, but if the council wants to talk about specifics, we certainly can do that.
Very good, Marty. Thank you very much. Council members, discussion, questions, comments, who would like to begin?
Rick?
Mr. Thomas?
Everything that I've seen so far, I'm willing to pursue staff's recommendation.
Very good. Thank you. Anything further, Rick?
Nope.
Mr. Bodden?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Are we saying that this prior company failed to perform under their contract?
We're saying that they did not perform at the level
Is there,
at which we
can we
would.
sue them for fees for failure to perform?
No, I mean, I don't think there's a strong case. We discussed, Marty and I discussed this briefly earlier today. We can talk about this. Do you want to put it on as a closed session for?
Use your microphone, please, for me.
Marty and I discussed this briefly this morning. And we can put this on for a closed session for our further discussion about possible litigation in closed session, if that's what the council would like. But typically, if the council has an issue with the performance or with the conduct of a contractor, the best case scenario is to pursue a different contract. And this one expires next week or the week after. So that's why staff's bringing it to the council like this.
Understood. It just seems like if we paid good money for a service that was not rendered, that maybe we should get some of our money back.
My understanding is it was rendered.
Yes, I think that what I would add to that is that the projects and LACO in their own letter actually listed quite a few things that were completed this last year. So projects were completed. It's not an issue of completing the work per se. It's how it has been executed. So a lot of oversight of emails and not responding to applicants. The very thing that frankly, this council has voiced more than once concerns about with being closed on Friday, for example. But we can be responsive and we can perform at the level the council wants, regardless of whether we're open or not. But we do have to respond to email and phone calls in order to do that.
Very good. And then they are asking for 3 years in exchange for, I forgot what it was, but there was provision. So I assume we'll have a really good, easy exit,
30 days.
30-day exit clause and a 3-year contract. And what are they giving it? Do you remember what they're giving it to?
They gave us a cut in the rate.
Okay.
And they also gave us a cut in the travel time.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Sprague?
And if you want to, I just want to add, we're actually planning to move forward with creating a office space here with a computer and a phone so that applicants who maybe don't have those resources available to them can actually come into City Hall and have a Zoom meeting with the planner. There will be set office hours, virtual office hours, as well, set hours that we can put on the website when a planner is available by phone or Zoom or email for more immediate response.
Love that idea. Make sure, make that very public by any means possible. The City of Willows is doing this to assist development and those who do the development.
Will do.
Very good. Mr. Sprague?
Yes, I was going to ask too if there was a way to recover costs associated with that, but apparently not. Just an observation here on page 34, there's a description here that they'll set up a planner to be able to do office hours and online and all that stuff. Back in my corporate days, I think it was about 86 or 87, I was building in Moreno Valley, which was a combination of 3 little towns down in Riverside County that got gobbled up. And I was in at the counter talking with the planner and so on. And I got such a reception that I had to make the comment to this particular planner. I said, you know, I've got 14 other cities that I'm working in right now. This has to be the most favorable city towards what I want to try and do. And the planner just kept pointing to the city, to the ceiling. And I again commented and pointed, and finally the planner looked at me and he said, you need to understand, we're being videotaped. And the mayor will be reviewing this conversation that you and I are having right now. Okay? Here's my point, is that as a builder developer, or any business wanting to locate into a city, usually the first, maybe the second person that they come in contact with is in fact the planner. And that planner can either kill a deal right out the get-go or help promote a deal that might in fact become reality. I guess this is a hybrid of technology this day to be able to do online Zooms, and that probably, I'm 75 years old, that probably would not satisfy my particular ego or whatever. But this is at least, I mean, we're not going to get anybody coming here and living here and being here on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure. We just don't have that much activity, that much opportunity. So I guess my only comment is having that personal touch with that planner that can make or break a deal right out the first meeting or second meeting. If the meeting is with Joe, the first meeting, I'm confident that Joe is going to tee it up very well for a business or any expansion that might want to happen here. That's my immediate reaction to you, Joe. I haven't
Appreciate it.
observed you on a one-on-one basis, but I think your heart is here for the city of Willows and you want to make it expand. The second person that applicant probably comes into is going to be with the planner. It concerns me that it's an out of town planner that doesn't have the heart for Willows like I wish they did, but I'm just hopeful that this system would in fact work better than what we've had in the past. Just my comments, no motion, just my comments.
Mr. Hudson.
I really have two questions. First one is at the end of the LACO letter, I think I read, there was no formal communication about why we're not renewing with them. Is that factual, or has there been multiple attempts to kind of try and correct the behavior that they were exhibiting?
Formal, I think, is the operative word there. No, there has not been formal in the sense of a form, a letter like this with, signed,
Not like a
from
signed
me.
letterhead being
Yeah,
sent out.
right,
But
no,
there's been
nothing, but
emails like, hey, I've been waiting for you to
there
respond.
has been
to this."
plenty,
So-
has been
'Cause
plenty of
I-
informal communication. Yeah.
I did go through the emails as well, and I see what you guys are talking about.
Yep.
Then my second question, because that satisfies my answer on that one, is you had three other options. I'm just kind of curious how the entire staff chose Harris. Have you guys met with them? Did they give you that warm, bubbly feeling inside? What
Well,
led you to?
Harris and Associates was really the second choice last year.
Mhm.
And frankly, they were the second choice among staff only because they could only do remote, other than coming to planning commissions and council meetings. They can do that, but they can't be here for office hours. And that was the only reason from the staff perspective that Harris was the number 2 choice, and LACO was able to offer the, in-office once a week offering. So that was the only reason that the staff recommended LACO. Having said that, though, Councilmember Thomas did sit on 3 out of the 4 interviews, and he may want to speak to his experience as well. Sorry, Rick.
No, that's fine. And I totally get we're coming into the, COVID really transferred how we do our meetings, right? It used to be face to face this close, and now it's computer screens more and more often.
I mean, but
I
to
noticed it
answer
in my
your
business as
question,
well.
Vice Mayor, both the city engineer who interviewed on the panel last year and myself, we both know Harrison Associates. If that's
what I was-
really what
yeah,
you're
so you have a
asking.
background with them as well for other,
We both do, yes.
okay.
I don't think that Joe was on this most recent. I don't think you do, but
No, I don't know them. The only one I'm familiar with besides LACO would be Four Leaf.
I'm
From the
familiar
county.
with you too.
Sounds good. No, I leave it to you guys.
Anything further, Evan?
Nope, that's it.
Very good. Well, Marty, in your comments in your staff report, you said it a lot kinder than I would. so I'll refrain from most of that. But poor overall performance from the get-go. And thank God it's only been a year and we're going to end this relationship because I have been absolutely unimpressed with our contract city planner from my first interaction with him at that staff table. I believe this firm is asleep at the switch and we can do much better. We need to do much better for our citizens. I'll end it there. I agree with the staff recommendation to move forward with the Harrison Associates and let's get a real contract planner back. Get some work done.
Would the chair entertain a motion to that effect?
The non-responsiveness with this firm is terrible. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Mr. Vaughn, do you have a motion to approve the resolution attached?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the resolution as presented.
Second. Oh, go ahead, Morris.
It's a fight. It's a fight. Mr. Vaughn has moved to approve the resolution attached to item B. And that resolution is entitled a resolution, City Council of the City of Willows awarding a contract for comprehensive professional planning services to Harrison Associates and directing the city manager to negotiate final terms, duration and conditions of the agreement. And who has the second?
Morris.
Mr. Sprague won. He has the second. Further discussion? Hearing
Thank you.
none. Or Mr. Sprague, further discussion?
No, fine.
Mr. City Clerk, this will be a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaughn,
Yes.
Councilmember Sprague,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hudson,
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. Matter carries unanimously. Thank you, Amos. Very good. We have a new contract planner, almost.
Hmm.
Very good. Thank you, Marty and team, for your work on this. Much appreciated. It's got to get better. Moving on to item 8, comments and reports. Item 8A, council correspondence. I have not received any, Marty. Am I missing anything? Very good.
Nope, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, very good. Item 8B, city council comments and reports. Who would like to go first? Anybody?
I will, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Sprague?
City manager, emailed me a couple of weeks ago or week, 10 days ago, asking me for an update on my wayfinding signs. My effort on this in working with Caltrans and working with the county gives a whole new definition to pushing a wet noodle across the kitchen sink. Very frustrating experience. I'm just reviewed back my file here and realizing that it was December of last year that I started open dialogue with Caltrans and the county. That's been frustrating. I will now be on my third staffer with the county because the first one finally gave up and said, I can't do anything. The second one, unbeknownst to me, quit the county a month or two ago. So here I am going back to the county and saying, how do we do this? In the meantime, I am pleased to report that, and I think Marty, you already got this information from PG&E that we got a $5,000 grant. I'm sorry, am I interrupting something?
No, I was just asking
just-
about that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the PG&E grant, and I didn't know that we'd been awarded yet. Marty informed me we had, and then you informed me again that we had. So that was,
Councilmember Sprague, I think I got the confirmation email and maybe I didn't share it with, I don't recall, to be honest with you, but yes, we did.
With PG&E.
yeah.
That's correct.
And I talked with the representative there. I also at that same time asked Cal Water and Waste Management. Unfortunately, I was past their deadlines already for the grant, but both have indicated to me, hit us again in January and we'll see what we can end up doing. I say all that to say this, that my tenure on the council is not going to outlive this particular project. So I don't know how we go from point A to point B. We had $4,700, I think, plus or minus a few nickels from the, what do we call that? The facade improvement program that we've agreed to put in this now. So now we're about $10,000. My frustration with Caltrans is, what can we end up doing? Well, it all depends how much money you got. Well, wait a minute, I'm stuck between the chicken and the egg here. How much, you tell us how much money you got, and then I can tell you as Caltrans what we can do for our new, so that's a little bit difficult. So in the meantime, what I've done here is I think we do have an opportunity to do something at least with the money that we've got. I think we're missing the opportunity, and I don't think we need Caltrans or anybody else to approve this. But we've got these 4 signs on that show the Kiwanis and all the other stuff, welcome to Willows and so on. But as you're going out of town, there's nothing on the back, except sometimes we get graffiti. But if we put something like this on the back, thank you for visiting Willows. Please come back soon. I don't know what this would take to get this done, but at least it would be a step towards the other thing. The other frustration, not frustration, but the other dynamic in talking with the businesses about their thought on this, there seems to be a split, probably about 25%. 25% would say, let's spend the money on something on the freeway that gets people interested in coming off of the freeway. But that takes big bucks for some identification on the freeway from my perspective. So at this point, I guess I've got 3 months left. I'm certainly pleased to continue to put my effort into this as much as I possibly can, but I'm probably going to have to pass the baton sometime to somebody in January. Whether that would be another council member, staff, or the planning commission, I got no idea. But nevertheless, that's my update at this point in time. So I would think that we could at least agree that this would be something that would be beneficial to at least thanking people for coming to Willows and asking them to come back again. No pride of authorship if there's something else that would be better to be said on something like that, but I think we're missing the opportunity of giving some sort of message to the people that came and shopped here in Willows. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Anything further?
I have a question, if I may, for Mr. Sprague.
Pardon me?
Initially, you were talking about the wayfinding signs on Wood Street. Are these Caltrans issues?
These are Caltrans issues.
So the sign that's leaning that you provided a picture for, and then the other one at Butte Street,
Right.
you had
What-
a design for one sign that we could move it down Lassen Street. Is that not doable?
Well, again, to me, it needs to be not knowing how much money we're going to get and how much money some of it, the things are going to cost, it needs to be a holistic approach, I think. I don't know. I'm certainly open to suggestions.
So
on-
we can't take that drawing or rendering you had and say, we want to just take these 2 signs down and put this one up on Lassen.
right. Caltrans says no. And the county supports saying Caltrans has jurisdiction over what kind of signage and what it says. How we got the one in on Butte Street by the liquor store bootlegged in, I've got no idea. And I got a feeling we got it bootlegged in and didn't. I guess, but the location, yeah. So to answer your question on Wood Street, Caltrans has, and there's my frustration, what I'm referring to is pushing a wet noodle, is I'm working with Caltrans, you got to work it through your transportation people. You go to the transportation people. Well, yeah, let's see what, and so on.
If we got permission from the property owner that's adjacent to that corner?
I never asked. But I'm assuming Caltrans probably looked at it and said, hey, it's our highway. We own it. We own the easement 5 feet back of sidewalk or whatever it is. And they put what looks like freeway signs up. So I don't know. Again, that's my frustration. While I'm thinking about it, Marty, during recent conversations, I learned that previous planner's name,
Byron?
no.
Karen.
Karen
Mantelli.
went down this track and hit the same block wall.
She did.
Yes,
Okay.
I was involved in that. Yes.
Were you
absolutely.
involved
Yes,
in that?
yes, with
Yeah.
Caltrans, yes.
Okay. All right.
It was
They're
difficult.
very difficult to work with around wayfinding signs.
Okay.
And Karen knew how to get things done. She had great difficulty.
So if we just took this bent sign,
I'm sorry, say again.
we took the bent sign, straightened the pole, and replaced the top side of that.
I don't know. That's the dilemma that I'm up against. And I would
It was
suggest,
dated from the sun, so we just updated it. It's already an approved sign.
I don't know.
Could, you know, if you'd like to discuss this with an agendized item on a future meeting, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Consensus of the council.
It's the right way to
Yeah,
go.
I think so.
I didn't hear. Go ahead.
Agendize
I
it.
recommend agendizing this matter for future discussion from the council.
Okay.
Uh,
fine.
when would you prefer to do that? Mr. Sprague, you indicated you'd like to do it before your term expires.
I would.
Okay, very good.
I'm pleased to contribute to whatever I can contribute to getting this done. I think it's a good, but I guess it's somewhat relieving to hear that somebody else went, including you, went down this path and hit nothing but roadblocks as well.
Well, it was complicated. I can expand on that when we
Okay,
discuss
all
it.
right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
there were several different complicated options. Well, 2 or 3 anyway. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, if you want to agendize it for further discussion, I'm pleased to. You bet.
we could, staff, if we could agendize this matter within the next couple of meetings for discussion.
Yep.
And, Mr. Sprague would be the spokesperson for this matter. Mr. Sprague, or is that
That's fine.
leaning to both of you? Very good.
I will continue to
Okay,
find out what I can find out.
okay, very good. Okay. All right, thank you. Look forward to the future discussion. Mr. Sprague, anything further?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Mr. Hudson?
I got a couple things. I did miss a couple of my committee appointment meetings due to just some family stuff going on. But I did want to thank staff for putting on the city hall crawl. It looked like a great turnout. I missed Marty in the dunk tank, but I definitely got to see Amos fall in there quite a bit.
Good.
And a lot of laughter from the kids, which was really great. And gave out some great prizes from a lot of local businesses that were really, you know, showing up for the city that they're part of, which was really great to see. Just another thanks too to staff for your guys' hard work. Tonight's meeting's kind of been one of those meetings where you realize how many different tasks you guys are working on at the same time. So, I do appreciate you guys' work. Don't want you to think that my questions are, in lieu of, you know, your hard work. I just have questions that I like getting answers to, and sometimes I ask more than I need to. And then also, I thought the city hall meeting on the Measure I was also a great event as well. Good turnout of citizens that showed up to that, and a lot of good questions as far as how that was going. So just wanted to do those couple of shout outs. That's about all I had though. But I don't have any reports, committee reports or any fun
Okay.
stuff like that.
Thank you,
so.
Evan. Mr. Vaughn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to underscore Mr. Hudson's comment about the crawl. It was great. Awesome job. Did you and Amos get dunked more than I did, I hope?
Approximately 4 times, but he got dunked a lot.
Yeah, I was hoping being early in the dunk tank would save me, but it did not.
did
as you
not,
all got
no.
to see. So,
Yeah.
yeah, all 4 operations were good. The people we were met with at all 4 of the stops were really dialed into the mission of the crawl and the development and building goodwill and friendship and also Measure I, which I was hoping to get a little bit of an update on our outreach and status of what we're doing to promote, if I will, I'm sorry, to educate people about Measure I. And is there another town hall on the drawing board before October?
There is not. I mean, if the council would like us to entertain another one, we certainly can do that. The FSAC committee, as we affectionately call the Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee, because that's a mouthful. We came up with the one meeting and I haven't heard from anybody about doing another one. If the council wants us to do another one, we certainly can. That's you tell me what you want to do. The only thing that I'm doing is walking precincts
And the
with
postcard?
the flyers that you've already all seen and we've been using over and over again.
And was there a post or analysis of the town hall? I mean, not so, but I saw the newspaper one and we were there, but I was curious about the committee, their feelings about it and any.
About which thing then?
The town hall.
I think that they all seem to think that it went really well and they were pleased with the turnout. I mean, I think everybody would have liked to have seen even more, but they thought it was really positive and positive feedback. you know, we talked about doing some sort of direct mail, but I think we've concluded we really can't do that as a city entity and a public agency to get out the word about the factual information about the city's finances and Measure I. So the only thing that I think we thought that's still possible is being able to leave the informational flyers that all of you, again, have seen multiple times now at people's doorsteps.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
how about the
it.
service club, or the round robin for service clubs? Do we have a plan to do that? To visit the service clubs and do a presentation or at least be?
I put out an article in the paper about the Speakers Bureau and inviting whether people from the council or city management or even FSAC committee members offered to speak to different groups, and we have not heard from anybody. We emailed them that information. There was an article in the paper some time ago. I was planning to put it back out on Facebook and maybe write another editorial about that and invite people, even if it's just an informal coffee clatch and they're not a formal group or of any sort, that we could certainly do that. I'm planning to do that. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
And just to remind the council that the law is very clear, it cannot be on city time.
Understood. The service clubs, I mean, that's easy. Rick and I have done them all. I'm sure others here have done service club discussions, go up and be their guest speaker and talk about the future.
Right, I'm just saying as far as the staff's time.
I appreciate that, but I know you'll manage that. So, can you give us a little itinerary for
She
October 8th?
probably won't. I probably will.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Oh, okay.
We don't meet again before October 8th, do we?
Another meeting of the council?
Yeah.
No.
So what's the plan for the 3 o'clock park event on the 8th of October? If you could give us an overview.
I was going to give you that update.
That's in your
my
report.
city
Forget it
manager
then.
report, yeah.
And my last comment, Mr. Mayor, is that I heard someone say just a few moments ago that Caltrans is very difficult to deal with. So I propose that we be very difficult to deal with Caltrans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bodden. Councilmember Thomas,
Well.
try to follow that.
Yes, I thought the call was awesome. Information and the feedback I got from our town hall was all positive. I noticed there was a FSAC member wrote a letter to the editor.
That's
I've
correct, yep.
seen some positive posts on Facebook because of that. So, and I received compliments of the material we have to pass out. So that all came from staff and the FSAC committee. So I applaud you for all of that. I know he went in the water because I pushed the button. I didn't throw a ball, I just pushed the button. Cheated. But he needed to get wet, so.
It was hot that day.
Basically, just good stuff going on at the city. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Yeah, I regret I couldn't, my apologies, and I let Marty and the team know. My apologies for not being able to attend the crawl. I unfortunately, was able to attend the crawl 2 years ago because it was a drought year. That's the unfortunate part, but that crawl was great. I know this crawl went very well. Margot Rowe from KHSL Action News did a fantastic job on her coverage, on her report. I recorded that, watched it, and kudos to KHSL for their outstanding coverage of that event. And I would have loved to have gone there to dunk you, David, repeatedly and press that button, as well as Marty and Amos. But unfortunately, I couldn't be there. It's a rice harvest time. It's day 13. So it's that time of year. It's that time of year. And I strive to make all the city events. That's why we're doing this for our constituents and for the public. Try to do the right thing in our hearts and our head, but I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm confident you're going to have a great event, and just kudos to the city. Good job it's a lot of work, as we know, from all hands on deck with the city team, putting that crawl on, but it's great information. It's public education, public information. The public's finding out where their tax dollars are going for and providing. So, I mean, vital core services. So good job. Rick, great job as the master of ceremonies, if you will, our town hall special meeting.
Thank you.
Excellent work. I think it was a positive meeting. it was all factual, accurate information was shared and good reviews, heard good reviews from I think it was actually 43 citizens in attendance, Marty, I believe, or some.
It's 43, that's
uh,
correct,
you know,
yep.
that weren't other than staff members and council.
Minus
members.
staff and minus
Yeah,
council, yeah.
43 citizens. So, yeah, I think it was great. It was really informational and, say, good job, Rick. Kudos. And, with that, just, Rick, I'll keep my Transportation Commission report under 20 minutes like I promised. But anyway, Thursday, September 19th, Regional Transit Committee meeting and then County Transit Commission meeting. I came in for that. In business, with the exception of our RTC meeting, and you'll find this interesting, Evan. And Evan, you had major family issues to handle, and you did the right thing by not being there. So we had a quorum, and completely understood. I saw your email, so I mean, you did the right thing, taking care of your family. So you didn't miss much. So, but anyway, but from the insurance perspective, the Glen Ride paratransit, which we contract with, which the RTC contracts with to provide transportation services in Glen County, had an excess of an $80,000 increase in their insurance premium this year from approximately roughly 36,000. Those are rough numbers. That changed our budget perspective significantly. It's not going to negatively impact our services. However, it was a company-wide, regional-wide issue with paratransit. And we had a budget amendment for that, but it was just the cost of doing business in California. I think we can probably all appreciate that.
Especially with auto insurance.
Auto insurance, and that was impacted Tehama County and their Butte County operations as well. So staff checked with the regional counties, and they're all faced the same issue. And paratransit did, like I say, company-wide in California. But unfortunate. Then moving on to the Transportation Commission meeting routine business. And David, you mentioned Sarah at 162. And I'm always on Caltrans. We've got a great District 3 rep, but he's just the messenger. He's not the target, although he is oftentimes the target at our Transportation Commission meeting. And he takes it well. He takes his hits well. But he does get us the information we ask. His name is Dawson Stroud. He's doing a good job. The young man is doing a good job in his role as a planner with Caltrans District 3 out of Marysville. So, the Stair Route 162 Wood Street reconstruction within the city limits from the western city limits, Airport Road roughly to Thames Street, Wood and Tehama. Construction is going to begin in December 2025. So coming up, December 2025. It is known as OJ 510 in the Caltrans system. It's a $23.2 million reconstruction project. So looking forward to that. I have made a request to make sure that signalization visibility improvements have been made. Other jurisdictions, especially in Butte County and here in Glen County, at Hamilton City, the Caltrans signal, Stair Route 32 and Stair Route 45 has that yellow outline on their lights. Why don't we have them? We need them so you can see the lights, especially on 162 at I-5 with the 4 signals, whether you're eastbound or westbound. With the signals are there for a reason. The signals are needed, but for us folks that live here, it's difficult enough. I could only imagine for people who've never driven here before coming off the freeway. All of a sudden, you're running into 4 signals back to back to back with merging traffic and businesses and all kinds of issues going on. So the whole thing's a mess. So Caltrans is also.
Try Road 200.
Yeah. So,
I'm sorry.
but that too. And part of that is a signage study as well as part of that on the signage study for Wood Street. So it's all coming together. December, a year from December, that's when it's going to begin. Engineering's underway now. We've asked for pedestrian improvements, and that'll also be part of it. Lighting improvements is another one, the lighting survey. So for the street lights. So it's all positive. With that, I believe that's all I had. Thank you, staff, for all the outstanding work you do day in and day out. All 18 of you. 17 or 18. It's 18 now, right? We're up to
17
18.
right now. It's 18 budgeted, but 17.
We're down.
actually.
We were 18
Yeah.
with that last vacancy. So 17. 17. Very good. Keep up the good work. Anyway, Thank you for attending tonight, Doug. Always good to see you. And, yeah, thank you, David. We will move on to, let Marty get her time to item 8C, City Manager's Report. City Manager Marty Brown.
Quickly, I just want to mention again that we will be having an event on Tuesday, October 8th at 3 o'clock from 3 to 4:30. Caltrans representative will be here to, it's a little unusual, but it'll be the design launch ribbon cutting. That's my working name right now for it. It's not finished project, but we have, as the council knows, you've approved and awarded the contract for design of construction, which is underway with Wildan. And so this will be an opportunity to help remind everybody that this project is moving forward, and the $4 million grant will be implemented with all sorts of improvements. We'll have renderings at the event for the public to be able to take a look at what's coming up. I know it's been a long time coming and a long wait, so we wanted to give the public an opportunity to see what's in the works. And some speaking will be done as well at the event. We'll have some cupcakes or cookies or something, and balloons, and maybe some face painting or something like that. I also am trying to coordinate it with when the high school lets out, which they get out at 2:50 that day. So that was part of the choice and the timing. I'm talking with the superintendent to try to get that information out to the high school and get some of the students to kind of come on over and see what's coming down the pike. And I think some other members, staff of the school district will also join us as well. So that's coming up. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that we have received our resignation from our now contract city clerk, Amos Hoover, whose last day with the city will be Thursday, October 17th. And we are all very saddened to see him depart. So we'll be figuring out how to shore up the contract services of city clerking until the time we can determine whether we financially can afford to hire another full-time permanent city clerk. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. Yeah, that was sad news, Amos. Hate to see you go. But anyway, we'll talk at a future meeting.
We'll talk out.
But maybe he'll change his mind. He'll change his mind.
Amos, I lived in San Diego for 3 years. I cannot imagine wanting to leave Willows to go to San Diego.
I don't know. My cousin after medical school in the Air Force ended up in San Diego when he was drafted for 2 years in the Air Force, and he never left.
Yeah.
He only comes back for funerals. He's
Yeah.
still living there. He loves it.
Yep.
But anyway, so all right. Okay. Thank you, Amos, for everything you've done for us. It's been a pleasure. So we'll have future public comments about that. Well, thank you for attending, Doug. Yeah, the time is 9 o'clock straight up, and meeting adjourned. Have a great rest of the week. Good night.